In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened.
A shot on Elo. Good! The Bulls win!
You know what time it is.
The most amazing, sensational, dramatic.
Oh, blocked by James! LeBron James with the rejection.
Holy cow! Oh my God!
I don't believe it! It just continues!
You believe in miracles?
Do you know what time it is?
I wake up in the morning, I piss excellence.
Welcome back to another episode of the Sports Hour. This is Mitch-Mo.
And this is Dallen. Wow, the energy is up. We are here, episode 172 of the Sports Hour. You good?
Yeah.
You got more? You want to keep going on the intro?
No, I just need to let it all out. We're good.
I felt like
Good.
you had the energy to keep going. I love it.
I got tons of energy right now.
We got a lot of energy. It'll be a fun podcast tonight. If you are joining us live on YouTube and Twitter, then you already know that we are joined in this episode by a guest. You see him on our screen. You're like, who's that third floating head there? It's our good friend, fellow Sports Hour guy, Jordan Fox. Jordan, welcome to your first time on the stream on the podcast. You've been on the podcast before, first time on the video. How you feeling? Welcome in.
What's going on, boys? Mitch, top tier energy. Love it, dude. You got me psyched. And yeah, hey, it's fun to be live with you guys. I haven't done this yet.
I think for the listeners too, we can finally put a face to the voice that has been on here so many times. We
Yeah,
can
for
finally
better or
put a
worse.
face. Nah, it's a great face. You got a great face.
Hey, you're
You're a
looking
face
at us.
guy. What can I
mean,
say?
come
You're a
on.
face guy.
Like, there's
Your
not much
voice
to
is
compare to.
trash, but the face, it works. It's all right.
Yeah, we're very glad to have Jordan on today. If you're listening to this on on your podcast feed, thanks for joining us. We're recording this on Thursday, August 10th. It's not a Wednesday. And let me tell you guys, I sat there at work today, just kept forgetting about this podcast tonight because I was like, it's Thursday, just out of sight, out of mind. And then every couple hours, I'd be like, we're doing a podcast on a Thursday night tonight. And so we're glad to be here. If you're listening to the podcast, maybe an invitation to come join us live, see what we have going on the screen, be a part of the more interactive parts of the podcast. 'Cause that's always fun. And that's a part of what we're doing tonight with our fantasy football preview. So Jordan's joined us for some fantasy football fun. So on top of a 10-round mock draft that we'll wrap up the podcast with, tonight, we're also going to be doing some of our favorite sleepers at every fantasy position. So a little fantasy football preview mixed in with some news and other stuff, the things we do here on this podcast. So it'll be fun. Mitch, are you excited? I'm very excited. Looking forward to this fantasy football preview because it does feel like fantasy football season is pretty much like here,
You know what? It got here in July for me. That's when you start really digging deep in and you start cramming all this knowledge and listening to all the different podcasts and trying to cram as much knowledge as you can into my tiny little brain. And football is among us. We are under a month away from full-blown football. Long month, right? 31 days I think we're at right now. So the long month, the longest of the months. But it's here. We're ready to talk about it. And you know what? It's a good way to kick off kind of our swing into the NFL, which will be full blown into all the way through February. So this is a good way to kind of kick off the conversation and get some juices flowing, if you will, as far as what the NFL conversation, what the landscape of the league is going to look like going into the 2023-2024 season.
Yeah, we'll be here weekly from here to the start of the season and obviously throughout the NFL season. So back to the normal schedule with previews every single week. This week, fantasy football. Next week, we'll be doing our college football preview and then all NFL the few weeks leading up until kickoff. So it will be a lot of fun. Before we jump into this, we're going to get into some news. We've got a pit of misery. We've got a few things before we get into fantasy football, but I do want to ask you, Jordan, Mitch mentioned July is usually when he starts getting interested in fantasy football. For you, is it this time of year? Or are you grinding it out in May? Like, where do you sit on the spectrum as far as when fantasy football season really starts for you?
Yeah, it's the summertime. You get into the summer, it's hot. You can't go outside where we live, otherwise you'll melt into the pavement. And so it's like, what else is there to do except for start nerding out and doing mock drafts and listening to podcasts and then trash talking your buddies. So yeah, I'm kind of on the same schedule Mo is. It's right about late summer that I start really winding things up again.
Yeah, I love that. Listen, we're maniacs here, so that totally makes sense. For you out there maybe listening, you're a little more normal. You saw preseason football started. You're like, hey, maybe I should pay attention now to like what's going on in the NFL. So that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for today, to give you an insight, give you some sleepers, give you an idea of what you could do in your mock drafts, and very much looking forward to this. But let's start this off, guys, with a bit of news. And our one bit of news today around college football conference realignment, and this is a domino that has been that we've seen for years now, the ripple effects, and the latest and the most significant of all of this comes in the last week or so with the news around the Pac-12 conference, and it's basically its demise. We don't know what the future holds yet, but we talked on our last podcast 2 weeks ago. We teased at the reports that Colorado was potentially heading to the Big 12. And sure enough, like the next day, that news became official after we were doing the podcast. So that happened very quickly. But in this 2-week span, Utah, Arizona, and Arizona State have all also left for the Big 12 conference, joining Colorado, forming those corner schools that were always rumored to be a target of the Big 12. And on top of that, we have Oregon and Washington, the two biggest remaining brands of the Pac-12, leaving to join USC and UCLA in the Big 10. So there are 4 teams remaining in the Pac-12. It's Stanford, Cal, Oregon State, Washington State, the leftovers, if you will. And the Pac-12, as we know it, is dead. There's a lot to be sort of talked about here, and we can get into some of the other conferences, but I want to just get your guys' maybe raw reaction to the demise of the Pac-12, what it means. How does it make you feel as a fan? Do you care that much? Are you excited about it? Where do you sort of stand on that? I'll start with you, Mitch.
It is sad to see a Power 5 conference just completely implode and collapse. You never want to see that. You hate to see it, but at the same time, like, this is a completely different college football than it was in the 2000s, right? Kind of in that heyday that we know of, where money is king, right? TV deals, NIL deals. This is the new era of college football, and so for these moves to be made, it's not shocking. And of all the conferences, the Pac-12 was probably the least willing to make any of these kind of deals without any sort of big money coming their way. I think they had a deal lined up with Apple TV, but it was subscriber based for the most of. Do you have the details on that?
Yeah, it was about $21 million per school, which is about $10 million in a media deal less than what the Big 12 got with ESPN and Fox just a few years ago at 31.5. So significantly lower than your competition, because obviously the SEC, the Big 10, they're up here. So you're competing, with what's left. So 10 million lower than that. And it was incentive based. A lot of it was described as, it feels like we're Girl Scouts, or it feels like we're selling candy bars for Little League. Like, we have to fund our own success, right. And that's obviously a model that is not it's not
sustainable.
Yeah,
it's not sustainable in college sports, and especially with the big money that comes with college sports now. I think as far as the future of the Pac-12 goes, there's one of two options. I think that there is a complete and utter collapse, and we're talking about Power 4 conferences. And we're looking at the Big 12, the Big 10, the ACC, and the SEC as the premier conferences in the nation. Cal, I think that maybe Oregon State and Wazoo find some homes, but I think Cal and Stanford go independent. I think that's a possibility. The other possibility is that there is some sort of merger with the Mountain West. So they bring in San Diego State, Fresno State. They bring in these Mountain West teams, and they kind of form the new Pac-12, which at that point, still doesn't seem like a power conference, right? Because it kind of has the feel of a group of 5 conference. So, the Pac-12 will never be the same ever again. And I think that we need to accept the fact that there's going to be just 4 power conferences, and whatever happens with the Pac-12 will never have the Pac-12 feel again. It's going to be a group of 5 conference, at least in our lifetime. But
yeah. Jordan, you have any thoughts on this news? And I don't know how much you follow college football or care about college football, but obviously this has been big sports news in general.
Yeah, I admittedly don't. I haven't been a college football guy in my lifetime thus far, and I feel like I should have a stronger opinion on this given my alma mater in Arizona is involved. But yeah, one of the reasons, guys, I was never a college football guy is I could never grasp the conference system to begin with. Like, it was just really hard to keep track of. And with all of the new shakeups and moves, I hate that for new college football fans as they're trying to figure out, like, wait, why is this corner playing way over here? And what are we doing? And nobody wants to see Cal and Stanford just as independent teams. That sucks. And so, Mo, I'm with you. I think the new Mountain West makes a lot of sense. My only take on this, boys, is I love that we've just given up on renaming the conferences. Like the Big 12, I think was it 2010 when they became the Big 12 with those 2 additions?
Yeah, I think
when the Big 10, and then they brought in.
Right. I think 2010, whatever, is when they changed it to the Big 12, and then these changes were made, and they're like, whatever, we're not changing it. It's just the Big 12 with 15 or 16 teams in it.
Big
is what
20
it
is about where they're at. So
yeah,
I think they have.
They're at
16
16.
teams.
They're at 16.
Yeah,
now,
16,
the Big
right.
12, and the Big 10 is also at 18 now.
Yeah,
they have
because
been
of course
at
it
14
is.
for years, and they've still been the Big 10. Yeah, I love that too. It's like, why the numbers don't matter. Anymore.
Whatever. Yep.
But I think for casual fans, I'm not gonna lie, I think for casual fans, this is a win for the casual college football fan, because what these conference realignment has done is created way more interesting matchups and paired the best teams together, right? So as much as it sounds stupid to send the lacrosse team from, the swimming team from across the country to another, we want to see USC and Michigan playing football, right? So as much as it sucks for women's soccer, and as much as it sucks for all the other sports, that it's going to be extremely inconvenient and costly, it's going to cost millions of dollars to send athletes across the country, but it's because we want these awesome matchups. We want the best teams together, and that's what this conference realignment has been about, motivated by TV dollars and motivated by TV companies who want to pay for the best matchups. So they're saying, go get USC and we'll pay you Big 10 $70 million a year per school. That's a no-brainer. So
and I get all we want to see these matchups and big thing, but this is also why I think Stanford and Cal going to the ACC is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
At that point, take the 2 conferences. I don't even know how to fix that. That would be just the dumbest thing of all time, that you would have the Atlantic Coast Conference have 2 representatives off the Pacific Coast. It just makes no sense.
It's an easy rebrand, Mitch. You keep it ACC. No more Atlantic Coast, All Coast Conference. We're the All Coast Conference.
Boom, saved.
All Coast Conference. Bam.
I hate that.
We don't even have to change anything.
That's actually such an easy solution. That's stupid.
But this is the reality we're in, right? We're in a reality where USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon are having to travel to Rutgers, are having to travel to Maryland, right? And in the SEC is regional, right?
Well,
the Big
Rutgers
12,
Rutgers
is not
be there in the first place, but
this domino effect will be interesting to see, right? What happens with the remaining Pac-12 schools? There's a lot of rumors of mergers with with the Mountain West, but also with the AAC, with the American Athletic Conference, which very much views itself as the next best below the Power 5. If they could bring in some of these schools, could that elevate them to that Power 5 status as the weakest power? That's a move they could potentially make. But I think, this is just the world we live in. And I guess for fans, this will not be the only thing. This is an ever-evolving thing. In 10 years, we might have 2 super conferences, and that's it. Power football, as we know, it might look completely different. It could be 40 teams in the power structure, and that's it. I mean, we really just don't know what the future holds. It's just very different right now. But exciting at the same time. Not exciting if you're a Pac-12 fan of Washington State and Oregon State, but probably exciting for everybody else. So it's crazy. This conference realignment stuff has been nuts. Again, over the last 2 years, we've been just sort of seeing news come out more and more. And again, more ripple effects to come. And I'm sure we'll talk about it here. Anybody else have thoughts on that before we move on?
No, I just hate it.
Yeah.
Yep. Poor Oregon State, Washington State. Hope they figure
Well,
something out.
and I let me get this off.
Oh,
my
he
chest.
has more.
Let me get this off my chest.
I knew he did. I was trying to set him up.
I'm tired of talking about conference realignment. I just want to talk about college football.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to talk about the football side of it. I don't want to talk about realignment anymore. Off my.
And that's where Mo, I think when college football season starts, what Dallen is saying is totally right. It's like we're going to be pissed off about this until games come, and then games are going to come and they're going to be sick. And so
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit sour right now.
Yeah, no, I feel you. And I agree with you. I can tell you, like, in this market on our sports radio station, it's all we talk about. I mean, obviously Utah just switched conferences. BYU's been admitted into a conference. I mean, it's been a driving force, and I'm tired of it after years of like what we talk about. You know, it's like, can we just be done and, like I said, play some football? But the good news is we are like 3 weeks away from college football, and the college football preview is next week, Mitch. So all that energy towards college football next week, we'll be breaking it down with the college football preview. So we'll look forward to that. That'll be fun.
Absolutely.
That'll be fun. We've got a couple pit of misery entries, Mitch. Do you want to go first with yours?
Yeah. You know what? The pit of misery, by the way, dilly.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we've had a pit of misery ad. And I want to shed a little light on DJ Cooper. DJ Cooper is a basketball player at the University of Ohio, if I remember correctly. Submitted a drug test. Drug test comes back that DJ Cooper is pregnant. Come to find out, DJ Cooper used fake urine or used other urine from another person and used it from a woman. That's why his drug test came back as he was pregnant. So clearly he's hiding something. And also, congratulations on the birth of your new child, DJ Cooper. So dilly, DJ Cooper into the pit of misery for just being a dumbass. Why, if you're gonna fake a drug test, why would you use female urine? There's
the vetting process has to be better.
Yeah,
there has to be, right? So DJ
Dude, imagine
Cooper,
that meeting. Imagine that meeting for a second. Not only are you caught, because obviously, but you also have to walk into a meeting where they're like, hey, listen, it's a boy. Like,
oh man. Yeah, that is pretty bad. That's well deserving of the pit of misery, Mitch. Dilly. I love that.
You know,
hey, dilly, boys.
It's just like that could have been so much better executed, and wasn't even close. Like he swung and missed by a mile on that one.
Missed entirely.
Some of the stupidest people I've ever known have successfully gone that route and pulled that off. So that's tough. That's tough.
I mean, it's a risky move. It's a risky move.
That it is. You'll love to see it. I do also have an entry to the pit of misery. I guess I do have to kind of ask. I have to ask permission. This is a submission to the pit of misery because this is Mitch is the warden of the pit of misery. It is his domain. But I would like to nominate the Baltimore Orioles ownership for the pit of misery.
Angelos in particular, because yes. Yeah, absolutely.
For their treatment of Kevin Brown, their announcer, a young broadcaster for them who on July 23rd in the game against the Rays shared some stats before the game about the fact that the Orioles had literally been god-awful at Tropicana Field in the past until this season and how well they were playing. Now, mind you, Baltimore is in first place in the AL East. They are having an incredible season. They are one of the stories of the MLB season, one of the darlings of this season. And an owner decides, how about I just ruin all this good, positive mojo for just because I'm an ass, and took offense to these comments made by this broadcaster. Kevin Brown was taken off air. He hasn't been on a game since July 23rd. And it's all because of a fragile ego of a guy who can't recognize that his franchise has been awful and they're actually doing something good. And let's just celebrate that instead of making it horrible. So, yeah, this is just so dumb. For all the things we like want to, you could quote unquote say cancel, or the things we want to get upset about or heard about, or, hold people accountable for. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, like, period. It's ridiculous. So, yeah, dilly on that. That's all I got.
Yeah, it's we had the Oakland A's movement of trying to have John Fisher sell the team in Oakland. Baltimore should have the Peter Angelos movement. Yeah. Just sell the team. I mean, this is horrible management. This is awful management. Like, you don't have the spine to take a little criticism. It's not even criticism. It was a statement of fact. You guys have sucked.
And it's not like it was opinion. It was literal statistics. Like, he was literally reading statistics.
Completely subjective. Like, you are or objective. Excuse me. You are objectively bad, and now we're having success. And I'm pointing out the fact that we're having success now. And you're going to get fired. I mean, come on, man. I mean, this is absurd and ridiculous beyond comprehension. Peter Angelos deserves to be removed as an owner in Major League Baseball. It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd.
Where do you get off?
Where do you get off?
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So there we go. Pit of misery, dilly, Peter Angelos. He probably should stay in there for a minute because, as you said, already one of the worst owners in MLB, and just making bad press for a team that's doing really well right now.
If he's going to stay there for a while, I got to thin the herd a little bit, because I'll just show this right here.
Are we getting deep?
Oh my gosh.
Wow. For those on the podcast,
is full.
Yeah, this is a full sheet of paper. That's a lot.
We have some thinning out to do.
You don't have a spreadsheet. You got to organize that a little more.
Yeah, dude, your human management needs to be better, Mo.
I'm old school, man. I'm old school.
We're talking about. You're just scribbling their names and sentences.
I'm a pen and paper
like
guy.
A
old school, yeah.
That's how much disrespect he has for the pit of misery. It's like, you don't even deserve the Excel sheet. You go on paper with crayon.
He's like, if I had
crayon, they would.
Oh, you love to see it. There you go. Pit of misery. Guys, let's jump into our fantasy football preview. We're going to start this off with something Mitch and I did last year on the podcast in our fantasy football preview, which is our favorite sleeper at each position in fantasy football. So we are doing this based on consensus ADP from Fantasy Pros. We're looking at players outside of the top 12, which would be considered wide receiver 1, QB 1, RB 1, and tight end 1 at their position. And we're going to give you a name to, keep an eye on, maybe somebody we're interested in, or a guy that we think is going to be a really good value for it. So that's pretty much it. Pretty straightforward. I say we start at quarterbacks, and I say we start with our guest because,
of course,
we got to have Jordan on here. So Jordan, quarterback, your favorite sleeper at the quarterback position this year?
Appreciate you guys letting me go first, because we were talking pre-show about how much overlap we were going to have. And my guess was that we were going to have a similar quarterback here. So my sleeper quarterback for 2023 is none other than the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback, Kenny Pickett. Current ADP 22, so quite a bit below our benchmark. And listen, 2022 was trash for Pickett. We can be honest. Like, rookie season for Kenny Pickett was not good. And so if you're listening to this podcast right now and you paid attention to fantasy football last year, you're like, who is this guy that they have on right now? Threw more interceptions than touchdowns. I think he threw 9 interceptions, 7 touchdowns. It was not good. But his ball security got better as the season went on. He went on a 3-game winning streak with the Steelers to end the year. But here's the thing, boys. Preseason projection for Kenny Pickett's rookie year was for him to throw 12 more touchdowns than he did. He ended up throwing 7. Preseason projections were 19. Real stats, he threw a touchdown 1.8% of his throws. Okay, not good. We can all agree, not good. But here's the thing. There is one player in NFL history, when you look at his rookie season, he had almost an identical rookie season to Kenny Pickett. Do you guys want to take a guess who that player is? Mitch-Mo.
Peyton Manning.
It's not Peyton Manning. That's a good guess, though.
Okay.
It is none other than Carson Wentz.
Oh, wow.
Carson Wentz's rookie year was almost identical to Kenny Pickett, at least in that touchdown to throw percentage. It was right about 1.8. So here's the thing. Carson Wentz in recent years, obviously, you're like, okay, well, that's great. That sounds excellent. That's definitely a guy I want. But I want to draw your attention back to Carson Wentz's season following up his rookie year, in which he took a giant leap forward, and that was the Carson Wentz darling period. And so I am not saying Kenny Pickett's going to do exactly that, but it is a decently interesting parallel to take. And I like Pickett's wide receiver room. I like the Steelers a decent amount this coming year, and so I see a huge positive touchdown regression coming for Pickett this coming season.
You know, I like that a lot. Pickett is a name I am interested in, especially as, like, let's say you wait on quarterbacks and you're taking someone a little further down the road and you want a nice insurance of a second guy who could really end up better for you. I love that for Pickett. And I will add as well, Jordan, I think the rushing ability adds a little bit more to Pickett. And it's not like he's not Lamar Jackson, but he had 55 rushes last year, 237 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he will get out. He will move. He is going to be a factor. And in fantasy football, any rushing stats for a quarterback is just going to add so much value. So I love that pick. That's a great pick. What do you think, Mo?
Yeah, I actually really like that pick. I think that he's going to be an absolute fantasy asset in the depth perception of that. You know, like a guy that you could really plug in if your starting quarterback goes down. A great, like in redraft formats, 12th, 13th, 14th round pick that you could really lean on. And I agree with Jordan that the positive aggression seems to be in his favor when you compare him to like a Carson Wentz type. So I think that Kenny Pickett, with the wide receiver room that he has, with Najee Harris probably coming off of the sophomore slump type of stuff, there's going to be a run game to support what he's doing. It's going to be a great year for Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, I like it. All right, Mitch, you can go next. Who's which sleeper quarterback are you looking at this year?
All right, well, not where I thought that Jordan Fox was going to go, because this is a guy that I've been not very high on, especially going into the NFL draft. I thought that he might be overdrafted or drafted too high. I'm going to go to the Indianapolis Colts, and I'm taking Anthony Richardson as my sleeper quarterback. And look, the guy's got all the metrics, right? He's 255. He's 6'4", 255. The guy's got the size. He's got the arm strength. He's got the athleticism. Coming out of Florida, self-admittedly, I was not a big Anthony Richardson fan because the numbers that he put up at Florida just weren't there. He completed something like 53% of his passes last year at Florida. However, we have seen a very, very good mixtape of Anthony Richardson from the combine to mini camp to training camp. And all we know is this guy can ball. This guy can ball. And I think he's in a good situation right now that he is going to be, he's going to have a run game to support him. He has the offensive line that vastly underperformed last year. I think that this is a guy that by the end of the year, right now he's at an ADP of 17 per Fantasy Pros. I think that he can vastly outperform that and be a top 12 quarterback by the end of the year. So I'm going to go with Anthony Richardson as a Cam Newton body type with some Jalen Hurts athleticism sprinkled in there. And I love his arm talent as well. So I'm going Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting pick. You know, the rookie quarterback, that's always going to be the biggest question mark, right? Is just we haven't seen your projecting, but obviously the upside there, and you know he's going to get rushing stats. So the range makes sense. He's QB 17 right now on ADP rankings. Jordan, your thoughts on Anthony Richardson?
Yeah, I like that pick, Mo. For kind of some of the same reasons we were talking about with Pickett. He obviously is a way better rusher than Pickett is, but the safety blanket that comes with a quarterback with rushing ability, it can't be overstated. I mean, he had 1,200 rushing yards at Florida over 2 seasons. But he can also bomb it. Like I think 9 of his 17 touchdowns were over 20 plus yards. So the guy can throw the dang football. He's going to give you a safety blanket of rushes. It's going to be interesting to see that first year what we get.
Yeah. I think that's where my hesitance is. If you look at history, and I just looked back at 2021 because I was curious where Justin Fields sat as his rookie year, right? Because we're talking about a guy that has rushing stats, and that was his main contribution. Young, he wasn't putting up big passing numbers, and Fields didn't play full time. And we'll see if Richardson plays all 17 games. But in 2021, Justin Fields was QB 31. Not very great. Now, on the other hand, the other name that I thought of, and he was a first-year starter, second-year player this year, but Jalen Hurts in 2021, also a running-type quarterback. He was QB 9. He was much higher up. I think the reality is probably in the middle of those two guys for Anthony Richardson, which is why he's QB 17 right now. Makes a lot of sense. But I think the upside is there if he looks solid as a rookie and he gets the rushing numbers. Yeah, he could be absolutely a QB1 in fantasy football.
Interesting that you bring up Hurts too, Dallen, because Richardson's new coach helped develop Hurts and Herbert. Yes. So, I mean, he's got a new head coach that has a proven track record of being able to develop really good young quarterbacks. So it's interesting for sure. Yep. It's a really interesting spot.
Yeah, I like the pick. My fantasy QB sleeper this year is Geno Smith. I'm going Geno Smith. It's not the sexy pick, and that's why you're like, Geno, like really? He's QB 14 right now, which, yeah, makes sense. That's probably a fair range. But you guys know where Geno ended up last year in QB rankings in fantasy football? Do you guys have a guess where he ended up?
I'm going to say, it's pretty darn good. I'm going to say 9.
9? Jordan?
I think it's higher than maybe it's not. I don't know. I don't have a good guess.
You don't have a guess? Geno Smith was QB 5 last year.
Here's the crazy thing. You guys are going to believe me. I was going to say 5 and then I got fearful. I'm like, there's no freaking way. It's not possible.
You can't be fearful, Jordan. You were right. Yeah. Only behind Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Joe Burrow last year was Geno Smith. Yes. Ahead of Justin Fields and all those rushing stats. And now I don't expect Geno to put up the kind of numbers that he did. I mean, extremely efficient, 30 passing touchdowns last year. Doesn't really add much on the ground, but when you get 30 passing touchdowns, that's big. I don't know if he hits that again this year, but this is we know what he is. He's proven to us in Seattle what he is. Seattle likes Geno. They brought him back. They could have drafted a quarterback. They didn't. They like what they've gotten. They've added a weapon in JSN. I think Geno is the easiest lock to slide into the top 10, top 12 by the end of this year, and he's QB 14 right now. So if you're at the end and you're like, hey, I want to wait an extra round, grab a wide receiver, and then grab Geno, I think that's a great move. So I really like Geno Smith at QB 14.
Yeah, I think Geno's a great pick. I mean, it was a prove-it year for him, right? And, as he gets older, that mobility has slowly gone away, but he's actually developed into a very good pocket passer. And that was self-evident in what he put up last year. So as the weapons get better and as he continues to develop within that offense, there's no reason to think that he shouldn't be at least flirting with that top 12 by the end of the year.
Yeah, I think Geno offers us as fantasy owners the same thing he offers the Seahawks in just a really solid, stable, but cheap option at quarterback, like you were saying, Dallen. This is a guy you're going to be able to get when you wait at quarterback and get him way later in your drafts, but he's not going to be lower than that 12 spot. He just won't be. Like, the Seahawks have gotten objectively better than they were last season, and even if you factor Geno's possible regression coming, which it probably will to some degree, he's still going to be right at the worst at that 12 spot, and I would say probably much higher.
Yeah. All righty, guys. That's quarterbacks. 3 good names so far. I'm surprised by some of these. I saw some of these coming. We'll see if we cross over each other on some of these yet. So far, 3 separate picks. So we'll go to
this was
back.
The one we thought we were going to step all over each other's toes.
True.
Too. So,
it was certain. I was so sure.
That is true. All right, let's jump over to running backs. And Mitch, you want to go first this time? Who do you have as your sleeper running back?
Yeah, sure. And I'm going to go with the guy that's going to be coming off of injury. And I think that, and he's right now, he's just outside the top 12. He's actually at RB13. I think that give this guy a little bit of time and we'll start to see the breakout start to come from this guy. But I'm going to go with Breece Hall. And it's probably the easy pick, but I don't think it's that easy of a pick. The guy's coming off a major knee injury. He's rehabbed exceptionally well. They expect him back by the beginning of the year, but I don't expect him to really get the ball rolling until about maybe week 5 or 6, right? He's going to be in some sort of rotation probably in those first few weeks. What I'm saying is I think you can get Breece Hall a little bit later in your drafts. I think that you can wait until maybe the 4th or 5th round to maybe get Breece Hall. And when it comes down to it, be patient with him. Be patient with Breece Hall. You're not going to get the gaudy numbers that you expect from this guy, but wait until week 5 or 6, and you can move him out of that flex spot, move him into your RB2, RB1 spot, and he's going to be a fantastic contributor for you. We know what he can do on the ground, and he's shown to have a lot of success in the air game as well. So I think that Breece Hall, if you're patient with him, is going to be a guy that can be a top 12 type guy by the end of the year. It's just going to take a little bit of patience. Wait on Breece Hall and take him just maybe a round or 2 later than what you think.
Yeah, I like Breece Hall a lot this year. I mean, obviously he had a big breakout last year, and the injury, we kind of forgot about him, but there were only 5 running backs in 2022 who averaged more fantasy points per game than Breece Hall did when he played. Josh Jacobs, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Nick Chubb, Saquon Barkley. Like, those are the best running backs in the league. And then right behind them was Breece Hall. Now, again, he was injured, so we didn't get to see all of him. But, yeah, I think he's definitely worth the shot, because if he's getting 12, 13, 14 plus games of production, he's going to be very good for you. So I like the pick, Mitch. Jordan, your thoughts on Breece Hall?
Yeah, I mean, I don't need to throw any more stats in addition to what you guys said. We know what Breece Hall can do when healthy on the field. There are a couple of concerns in my mind when it comes to Breece Hall, and none of them have to do with Breece Hall's ability. It has to do with coming back from injury. How long is he going to be thrown into that timeshare situation? Because he's in there with Michael Carter, who I still believe is a capable running back. I mean, we've seen that in spurts. And then the Jets are also taking a look at Dalvin Cook, apparently, which who knows what's happening with that. But if, like, in this hypothetical world, they go get Dalvin Cook, and even if they don't, how long does this timeshare last? But if it's just a short stint, like, Breece Hall is just going to go absolutely nuts.
Yeah, that's a fair point there, and that is something that the Dalvin Cook news I'm sure has been scaring a lot of people this offseason is if he ends up signing with New York, how does that affect that backfield? And it's something that we'll certainly, I guess, have to wait and see on. So, Jordan, who's your running back pick?
Yeah, this is my first of 2 homer picks, Mitch. So here you go. We're going with Aaron Jones. He's a 17. Yeah. Listen, I had to. There's no way I'm looking at the ADP currently, and I'm not going to take Aaron Jones. The Packers offense is a huge question mark coming into 2023. Aaron Jones isn't. So when you're looking at sleepers or fantasy producers, especially at the running back position, one of the things I look at are what are offenses that are going to be terrible that have a great running back? Because what are they going to do? Like, Jordan Love might end up being fantastic. Great. That would be excellent for me as a Packers fan. I hope he is. But when he inevitably struggles to start the year and when the Packers offense stalls, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to rush. So his rushing rate is going to undoubtedly increase from what it was last year. He was kind of upper middle of the pack, nothing crazy to look at there. But and then there's the conversation of AJ Dillon is still there. And so AJ Dillon is going to vulture the pass attempts. We're never going to have what we once had with Aaron Jones in the passing game, but I have full confidence that Aaron Jones's rushing ability will carry him to fantasy relevance. And he scored like 3 rushing touchdowns last year, which is not going to be the same this year. So Aaron Jones was an easy pick.
He was RB11 last year with that few touchdowns. So
exactly. Yeah. His rushing yardage will just carry you, touchdowns or not. And positive touchdown regression again should inevitably come. And the Packers have to lean on him. I mean, they just have nothing else to start the year. And so they're going to rush the football. And Aaron Jones is good enough where it doesn't really matter if the other team knows it. He's just going to pound it down your throats.
Yeah, I love the Aaron Jones pick. He was on my short list. I will pick a different name because you did take him, which is great. It's a great pick. Definitely a guy I like. Mitch, your thoughts on Aaron Jones?
The AJ Dillon thing is a worry for me because he's not only he's a vulture in the goal line situations, right? That is a big-bodied man. And I think part of the reason why Aaron Jones touchdowns were down last year is because because AJ Dillon became such a reliable goal line back. I'm going to throw a wild name out here, but kind of a Mike Gillislee situation over there in New England about 2015, 2014. I mean, he vultured goal line situations. And so that's where I have a little bit of worry about Aaron Jones. I think that he's still the lead back, and they're going to have to lean a lot on the rushing game, especially with developing Jordan Love. But I still like the pick. I think that he could definitely absolutely get his way into a top 12 situation come season's end.
Yeah, and this could be a two-parter, boys, honestly. Both running backs in Green Bay are going to be excellent. They just are.
Yes.
Because they have to be. So regardless of AJ Dillon's vulturing or his production, I think they're both going to be very fantasy relevant producers. And I still love Aaron Jones, even if AJ Dillon continues to vulture goal line carries.
One of my biggest regrets in Dynasty is trading you AJ Dillon. So,
thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I hate to see it.
For Russell Gage, are you kidding me?
That's so dumb. You should not have said
They're
that.
not all winners, Mo. They're not all winners.
That was a bad look. It was a bad look.
You should have lied and said I sent you Lamar Jackson or something ridiculous.
You kept it at I traded you AJ Dillon. That was it. It'd have been better for yourself, but no, I'm just kidding. No, that's great. My sleeper pick at running back, and besides Aaron Jones, the other guy that I'm kind of intrigued about is James Conner. James Conner, running back for the Arizona Cardinals. Last year, running back 19, not sexy, not great right now. I think he's projected at that exact same spot at RB 19 right now. But no, he's actually RB 23. I'm looking at standard PPR. He's RB 19. Yes, and James Conner's a hard one. It's very hit or miss, and he's so touchdown dependent. That's really what it's about. When he's had double-digit touchdowns, he's been like a top 5 running back. In 2021, he was a top 5 running back with like 15 touchdowns. In 2018, he had the big season with Pittsburgh. He was a big running back. Other than that, he's like an RB2. But he is going to get a good amount of run this year with the Cardinals team that is depleted of talent, has nobody really to turn to, and they're going to need to rely on this run game, especially early in the season. He's got backups getting injured right now, so there's going to be a lot of workload for James Conner available. So just by sheer volume, I think he's going to be pretty good. And then if the touchdown numbers get back up, if they trend in the right direction, he's been down a couple years, so you play that, and you're like, all right, this is the up year. If he hits 10 touchdowns, he's like an RB8. Like, it'll be very easy. So as like your second running back, you're taking, you get a solid guy, and then you say, you know what, RB2, we'll give James Conner a shot. I think it could be a good value.
Well, the reports out of camp is that James Conner has been somewhat a part of the pass game as well. So maybe you're onto something here, Dallen. I think this is a great pick. I mean, this is still a guy with a big body, big, healthy body that's young enough to contribute at the running back position. If the rumors are true that he is contributing in the pass game as well, I mean, you're looking at a guy that could sneak his way into the top 10, maybe even that top 7 range. James Conner, I've always been a fan of. It's just the situation has never been quite right other than that 1 year in Pittsburgh. So I love the pick. I love the pick.
Yeah, it's always, can he stay healthy? Right? Like,
yeah.
When James Conner is on the field, there's no issue at all with him being an absolute top producer. And of course, he's going to be involved in the pass game, by the way. Who else is Kyler Murray throwing to in Arizona?
Yes, yeah.
The water boy, when they suit him up, like, there's nobody to catch passes. So he's going to catch more passes. And then James Conner, in the last 8 games of the season last year, he took 90% of the snaps. Arizona added no one at the running back position, so it's all his. And he was running back 4 through those last 8 weeks. So it's an obvious no-brainer from me. If he's healthy and on the field, James Conner is going to be awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, I thought I was going to be shamed low key, so I'm glad you guys are like all
Nah,
on board.
I'm on board with
No, I
James
love
Conner.
that.
Great.
I love
I'm
it.
on board.
All right. Let's jump over to wide receiver, guys. I want to go first here because I don't want anyone to steal this. So I'm going to go.
Don't do
with
this to me.
my sleeper pick, and I got to go Amari Cooper. This is
Okay, thank you.
This is the easiest one for me of any of the ones that we've talked about and that we will talk about today. Amari Cooper is the easiest one for me. Right now, he's wide receiver 17. Last year, he was wide receiver 8. Last year, he was wide receiver 8 with a bad Deshaun Watson and half a season of Jacoby Brissett, right? And we all expect this Browns offense to be better. We all expect Deshaun to be better. He's being drafted as a top 10 QB right now. We expect that all to be better. So if Amari Cooper, who put up 1,100 receiving yards last year and 9 touchdowns with that situation, he's good for at least that this year, which is wide receiver, which is top 10. If not, potentially even better. We know Amari, he's extremely talented and extremely underrated. So I am like all in on Amari Cooper this year. I think he's huge value at wide receiver 17.
That is a huge value. I mean, this guy wasn't that long ago a top 12 wide receiver. And like you mentioned that he finished at wide receiver 8 last year with the quarterback situation that he had, but he was like a chalk top 12 wide receiver not that long ago. Now we're in a situation. Maybe Deshaun Watson has found his stride. He's going to work out the wrinkles, get back into kind of Houston Texans Deshaun Watson, put him in a great situation where, he could be a true wide receiver 1 again, where it was, in Dallas with Amari, it was kind of convoluted, right? Like he was the biggest name, but like there's all these emerging guys behind him. So who's going to be wide receiver 1? Amari's clearly the wide receiver 1 in Cleveland, and he's given that opportunity here. I think this is a great pick, Dallen, and that he is going to have the opportunity to have a second breakout, a rebirth, if you will, in his career. So I love that pick for Amari.
Yeah, it feels like the safest pick to me. I agree with you, Dallen. Like we're talking about Amari for the first time being clear wide receiver 1 in an offense that is led by an elite level quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we're all assuming
Derek
Deshaun
Carr's
Watson...
not elite. I'm kidding.
Sorry, Raider fans. Yeah. I mean, we're all assuming Deshaun Watson's just going to return to form. Maybe something happens. I don't know. It's been a long time. But yeah, I mean, how does he not produce? At the worst, he's a wide receiver 2 with massive wide receiver 1 upside. I love that pick down.
Target monster. He should be a target monster.
Absolutely. All right, Jordan, you want to go next here? Who's your wide receiver pick?
I will go next year. I need how do I preface this? Okay. So in my prep, just so you guys know, the guy I wanted to go with was showing at 14, and now I'm seeing he's showing right at 12. So I'm not going to pick him because he's literally the line. But I am going to say this: Chris Olave, is going to finish at wide receiver 3 this season.
Ooh, wow!
And I don't even think it's that spicy. Chris Olave is unbelievable. I'm going to save you guys all of my prep work on Chris Olave. I'm getting it on record now. Yeah. You got Justin Jefferson, you got Jamar Chase, and then it's going to be Chris Olave. Okay, moving to my actual guy, Calvin Ridley.
Yeah,
Calvin Ridley.
A good pick.
He's at 16. I have loved Calvin Ridley forever. I was previously a Calvin Ridley dynasty owner. He's gone now, obviously, from my team, but man, I love this guy. And more than my love for Calvin Ridley, I love the Jags. The Jags offense is so fun. It's so fun. Trevor Lawrence is my dude. Travis Etienne, unbelievable. And then you get Calvin Ridley, which I don't know if you guys are seeing the videos coming out of camp, but he's making dudes look like peewee footballers before they run routes before him.
Like
and then Calvin Ridley runs out there. Yeah. He's fast. He's cutting. It looks like injuries never happened. It looks like he never missed any time. That dude looks unreal based off the tape we're seeing. And now pair him up with a surging Jags offense powered by Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I would be dumbfounded if Calvin Ridley does not get back to the wide receiver 1 numbers of old.
Yeah, I mean, he was, to remind people, he was wide receiver 4 in 2020, right? And that was the last time we really saw him at full strength. And but like, He was wide receiver 4 at that point in his career. And I think a lot of the hesitance is obviously he hasn't played in a while. And, the sort of dynamic in this wide receiver room. You have Christian Kirk, who was wide receiver 11 last year. He was a wide receiver 1. And now, how does this sort of balance out? But I think Ridley's obviously he is the guy in that offense. He is going to get the targets. He's going to be the big play machine. So I think Ridley's good for it. I love the pick. And it's a great value. Mitch, your thoughts on Calvin Ridley?
I mean, I love that pick. That was one of the guys that I had on my short list. I love the Jags offense as well. I think that this is going to be an exceptionally fun team to watch. They might be a 9-10 win team, but they're going to be fun. They're going to be really fun and seek their way in maybe to an AFC wild card. I think that he just has not lost a step.
Nope.
He just hasn't lost a step. He's looking like old Falcons Calvin Ridley. There's no step that he's lost. It's a fantastic pick, Jordan. Yep. And I'm kind of mad I didn't get to take it, but I feel strongly about this guy as well. So
okay, well, you have the pick, Mitch. So who do you got?
So you guys had a guy at wide receiver, 18? And wide receiver,
Ridley's at 18.
17. I want you to go all the way down to wide receiver 32.
Shut your mouth.
Ooh. I'm going Michael Pittman Jr.
Love it.
Okay.
Love it.
This is a guy with an actual legitimate quarterback situation going on in his favor right now, right? Big, strong arm. Anthony Richardson. I talked about him earlier. The quarterback room that this guy has had, let's talk this through here. He's had Matt Ryan. He's had Jacob Eason. He's had Carson Wentz. And I believe he had Phillip Rivers for a year. And Phillip Rivers was at the end of his career, kind of the flailing Phillip Rivers that we know. Not a great quarterback situation for a guy with so much talent. This guy is primed for his breakout year. And I'll call it right now. Michael Pittman will be a top 10 wide receiver in fantasy football at the end of the year. This guy has so much talent. He has the deep threat ability. He has the big play ability. But I think that he could be a Michael Crabtree type, a target monster, a 5, 6, 7 reception type guy a game where you're going to be, it's a guy that you plug in at wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 and not even think twice about it. I think by the end of the year, Michael Pittman will be a top 10 wide receiver in fantasy football. Lock it in right now.
I like it. I mean, he was like a popular name last year for a breakout candidate in year 2, and a lot of people expected that leap. Maybe we were a year too early. I like that thought, Mitch. And I will say you're onto something here. Pittman was 12th in the NFL last year in targets of all wide receivers. 12th last year, right? So he's already a volume monster. Those numbers are going to continue. He only had 4 receiving touchdowns, but he had 900 receiving yards. So he had good enough numbers that if he's like 7 or 8 touchdowns, instead of wide receiver 27 in 2022, he's probably, wide receiver 15, 16, 17, right? So he's not that far off from there, even though the ADP and what he's shown you before might scare you of thinking, is he really capable of getting into the top 12? I think you're right. I mean, numbers wise, he's going to have the ability, a lot depends on Anthony Richardson, but he's certainly going to have the targets. So I like that pick, Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, the touchdowns are the issue, right? If he catches a couple more touchdowns, we're not having this conversation right now. But guys, he caught 100 passes last year.
Yeah.
This is the quietest 100 reception season anybody's ever had.
Yep.
There's a question mark about target share, I guess, with the new quarterback in the offense. But man, if he puts up even close to the same amount of receptions and gets a couple more touchdowns, what are we talking about?
Mm-hmm. And I mean, talk about the big play ability. He has that athletic ability with Anthony Richardson, the big arm guy that we know him as. Maybe we're talking about a 1,400 yard receiver with similar reception numbers. Maybe not 100. That's absurd. But in that 90 to that 80 to 95 range with that kind of yardage, we're talking about a top 10 wide receiver here.
Yeah. Also, here's the other crazy part, boys. It feels like Pittman's been around forever for some reason. In my head, at least. Maybe you guys don't feel the same way. The guy's 25.
This is
he's
third
only
year,
25
right?
years old.
Yeah.
This is third
Yeah,
year?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
It feels
I
like
think-
I don't know if that's the dynasty effect or what. It feels like he's been around for forever. We've been waiting forever, but the guy's 25 years old.
Yeah.
He's got so much time.
Absolutely.
tons of
Yeah, it's a
time.
great point. It's a great point, Jordan. All right, on to tight ends. Final category here. Sleeper tight ends. Let's go Jordan first. Who's your pick?
This is my other homer pick. Give me Luke Musgrave.
Oh,
Don't roll your eyes at me. Mo. Don't roll your eyes at me. Here's the deal. Listen, and I'm gonna throw coach speak out first thing, right? Matt LaFleur's most recent comments on Luke was that he is the biggest, fastest guy I've ever seen. At the tight end flyer position, listen, you got to make some dart
He's
throws.
tight end 38 right now.
I'm aware. Listen, when you get into a conversation about tight end sleepers, you got to start making some dart throws. This is a dart throw for me.
Hey.
And when I'm making dart throws at the tight end position, what I'm looking for is size and athletic ability, both of which Luke Musgrave has. The dude's 6'6", 253, and guys, he ran a 4.6 140. He's huge. He's athletic at the tight end position. He is all the things that we loved about Kyle Pitts, but he's not Kyle Pitts. Like when Kyle Pitts was coming in, we're like, he's huge. He's super athletic. He's the most athletic tight end we've seen since Tony Gonzalez. It's like, cool. I'm not saying Luke Musgraves is that, but I am saying he's massive and super athletic. Here's the thing. I'm going to throw you back to Green Bay. Think about it for a minute. Who's catching passes, Mo?
Christian Watson.
Yeah, maybe.
Romeo
Probably not.
Doubs.
Romeo Doubs is not catching anything. There's nobody there. There's nobody there to catch passes.
Sorry, I was just trying to.
Listen, you got deeper at Green Bay's offense than most people would be able to get. Like, there's nobody there. Add to the fact you got Jordan Love in his first real year at quarterback. He's gonna dump it down. He's gonna. And when you have a 6'6", 253 tight end where you look down and all you see is the goalpost of a giant man's arms, you're going to throw it there. He's going to get a good amount of receptions. It looks like he's going to be the day one starter in Green Bay. Yes, this is a crazy dart throw, but I'm telling you, don't be surprised.
Okay, so you might be right. You might be right. Luke Musgrave obviously is going to be a guy that's going to compete for targets, and with the lack of guys around him, he probably is going to be the recipient of a lot of those. So I don't have much else to say because
it's tough. Like, we have nothing to go off of here, right? It's
we
like
have
it's
nothing
a
to go
pure
off
dart
of,
throw.
And I don't want to talk anything good about
Green Bay football. I get it. But it's like,
And
listen, if we're talking dart throws here, take size, take athleticism, and take availability for receptions. That's purely where my metrics are at.
Yeah, and if you're in a deeper league, you've got enough space on your bench to take that second or maybe even third tight end. I think that's like the perfect guy to go after and say, I'll get somebody, solid that's just going to do enough for me, and then take a guy like Musgrave that has that huge potential because of, I think, as you alluded to very well, just what we don't know about the pass catchers in Green Bay and how the ball is going to get divvied out, who Jordan Love likes, how he likes to throw it, where he likes to put it. I mean, that's all TBD. So I like the gamble on Luke Musgrave.
Dallen, can we play a fun little game real quick just because I really want to take Mitch's temperature? Mitch, Luke Musgrave or Hunter Henry? Which I realize I might be taking one of your picks right here, but I'm just curious.
Luke Musgrave or Hunter Henry?
Uh-huh.
Hunter Henry.
I'm taking Musgrave.
I'm taking Musgrave.
Yep. And that's like,
Musgrave.
Listen, Hunter Henry is like at freaking 17 or something. He's that middle of the pack kind of. He's a 21. Okay, he's lower than that, but
yeah. I mean, again, at tight end, it's so hard because it's so different than other.
All right,
positions,
let's play the game.
Top guys.
Let's
and then
play
you've got
the game.
A bunch of mid-tier guys, and you got to decide
exactly
where to go in that range. So
we're throwing darts anyway. Throw a dart.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let's play the game then. Luke Musgrave or Greg Dulcich?
Musgrave.
I would. That's
close. Actually, that's close. That's right at the line for me.
Yeah,
like, I honestly, anybody below Dulcich, I'm taking Musgrave, I think.
Okay, so you think Musgrave has top 12?
I do.
Ability, because Dulcich is at 12.
I do. Because, Mo, here's the deal. if you look at the tight end landscape right now, anybody below Darren Waller, right? And so if we're talking top 5 should be guaranteed stud tight ends. Anybody from 5 to 12 could land anywhere.
Yeah.
Like justifiably without argument. It's going to be an absolute crapshoot. Absolutely. I think Musgrave, given all the stuff we talked about, could end up somewhere in that 12.
Okay.
Now, I think we know that Jordan isn't advocating for you to draft Luke Musgrave where you would draft Dulcich or where you would draft Hunter
this
Henry.
Would be a late round
but
steal.
Yes, but as far as the value goes, I mean, you make a very compelling argument.
Yeah.
All right, Mitch, you're up.
I'm not on board with that.
Do you want to need a second or?
No, I'll go. You
got to go to break early. Mo's got to cool off.
No, I'll go because I'm going to be a homer for a second.
I knew you were going to.
I'm going Cole Kmet. So
yeah.
And you look at what Chicago has, right? Yeah, they have DJ. They brought in DJ Moore. That's a great addition, right? Justin Fields needed that wide receiver one that he could throw the ball to. Outside of that, Darnell Mooney was kind of the de facto wide receiver one because they had no one else. He's probably at best a wide receiver 2. At the very best, they have Chase Claypool, who knows if he's even going to make the roster at this point because of how streaky and how inconsistent this guy is. Who else does Justin Fields have to throw the ball to? Well, what do
DJ Moore.
They have DJ Moore, but if quarterbacks are going to lean on a body size from the 20-yard line in a passing situation, where do they typically go? The big bodied guy. They go from and DJ Moore, as much as I love him, not the big bodied wide receiver. Cole Kmet is the big body in that offense. Cole Kmet is going to be exceptionally touchdown dependent. I don't think this guy is going to be like an 80, a 70, 80 reception type guy. But I think that he could be a high volume touchdown guy that you could snag late in your drafts. I think that he could be a guy that, as a 50 to 60 reception guy, maybe 800 yards, but could rack up in the 8-9 touchdown range because he's going to be a red zone type of threat. Cole Kmet, big bodied guy. I'm going with the Comet, Cole Kmet.
Yeah, I do think that's a solid pick, Mitch. This is a guy who was tight end 7 last year. And also tight end 7 with 69 catches. Like he didn't have big numbers. He had, I think, 7 receiving touchdowns, which that helps. He had 0 the prior year. So big difference there. So like you said, sort of touchdown dependent, but he's getting 90 targets. He's a part of this offense. And the numbers have shown that over the last couple of years. And yeah, you look at the options around him, not very many better options. So with where he's going right now and the fact that he's already shown you to be a top 8 tight end at the position, I think that's a really good pick.
Yeah. And Justin Fields is improving as a passer too, which improves the offense on the whole. The DJ Moore thing, taking away targets, okay, whatever. But the reality is Cole Kmet's going to catch touchdowns, and that's where his value lies. And so if the offense is moving, if they're getting down to the goal line, I agree. I think Cole Kmet's a good, solid pick.
Love it. All right. And then my tight end, my sleeper at the position this year is Chigoziem Okonkwo of the Tennessee Titans. You may not even know who this player was. He was like a 4th-round pick last year who really had no hype, nothing going for him whatsoever. But Tennessee, speaking of depleted pass-catching cores, they had basically still remained to have nobody, but definitely last year we're struggling in that department. And he was able to emerge, especially in the second half of the season, as somebody worth having 32 receptions, 450 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Right now, he's tight end 14. So there is an expectation that he's going to make a leap, considering he was tight end 21 last year. But I think he is the type of guy that can jump up into that top 8 range. And Jordan, you mentioned when you're looking in this mid range, you want any high upside are guys that are going to be extremely athletic, that have all those sort of tools. And that's the kind of player that Okonkwo is. It's just going to be a matter of can he develop in this offense? Is he going to get that big enough role as a 4th-round pick when you're putting him next to Treylon Burks and you're putting him next to other players? Is he going to be able to get that much volume? When you've invested a high pick into like a Cole Kmet, when you've invested picks into other players, you're more keen to give them those targets. Is Chig going to be able to get enough targets to really get that high? I think that's my biggest question, but Tennessee needs to throw to him. They like throwing to him. He came on strong in the second half of last season. I think he's only going to grow into that. So I think he's a really solid pick. Even though he's 14 right now, just on the cusp, I think he's a very solid pick to get into that top 12.
I love Okonkwo. Shout out to also just being a classic Dallen guy with just the hardest last name to pronounce ever.
He practiced
he was
that
on
for a week.
I didn't.
No doubt about it.
I got
Okonkwo's not that hard. You're like, wait, I got to get through this.
First name. It's the first name that he's shortened.
The first name I'm not going to try. Yeah, forget about it. He was on my short list. He's a guy who I like a lot. There are more question marks with him than I think some of the other dart throws we could pick, because we also could potentially be forgetting that DeAndre Hopkins just signed with the Titans, and so that is more targets that are gone, obviously. And their quarterback room is a nightmare. Like, who knows? Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows what that is going to look like? So I like Okonkwo a lot as a player. And again, he was on my short list. There's just some question marks that made me go a different direction, but otherwise I'm totally on board with you, Dallen.
Yeah, D-Hop definitely adds a question mark, a bigger question mark to Okonkwo, and what kind of target share he's going to get. Also, this offense runs a lot of like 2 tight end, 3 tight end sets. Our boy Jeff Swaim plays in Tennessee, so like, he's probably third on that depth chart, but
he actually is in
still
Arizona
deserves the
now.
shout out.
He's in where?
He is in Arizona with the Cardinals.
Oh, okay. Well,
he's about to be an immaculate grid gem. He's been everywhere.
Yeah. They did a little inadvertent swap of, you could say they swapped D-Hop and Jeff Swaim, but it wouldn't necessarily be accurate.
But with the multiple tight end sets, and they're really focusing on like the blocking tight end types. I have a hard time. I think that you have this guy pegged down pretty good, but I think that there's going to be some targets taken away from him, but definitely a potential to be a top 12 tight end by the end of the year.
Oh yeah. I mean, as we've kind of alluded to already, it's like you get that top 5 that you feel very solid about at tight end. And then after that, it's like pick whoever you feel most comfortable with, you know, and there's going to be a lot of different options to pick from. So there you go. That's our favorite sleeper at every position this year in fantasy football. That's love that. Great stuff, guys. Let us know your thoughts. Is there a name that we didn't mention that you're very high on this year in fantasy football? Let us know in the comments if you're watching live tonight on YouTube and Twitter, or if you're listening to the podcast, send us a message. Let us know who you're high on this fantasy football season. But guys, it's time to take a quick break. Let's hit the mid-roll. And on the other side, we'll do a little immaculate grid. We did this on the last podcast, had a ton of fun. So we're going to bring back the immaculate grid. Mitch has got to do the top 5. And then 10-round mock draft, fantasy football mock draft here on the podcast. Should be a lot of fun. So stick around, and we'll be right back.
Oh, welcome back to the Sports Hour with Mitch-Mo Dallen. We got a fun second half coming up for you. Gonna play a little game, a little immaculate grid. I'm gonna have a top 5, and then we're gonna get into our 10-round fantasy mock draft. Boys, are we ready to get this second half rolling?
Yeah,
Let's go.
I think so.
All right. Let's jump right into it. Let's get into the immaculate grid. Dallen, you have one all ready to go.
I do. Today's. I didn't even look at it today. I avoided looking at it because usually, I wake up in the morning, I'm like getting ready. I'll drink my coffee and then I'll try to, do the little immaculate grid, but I couldn't do it because we got to save it for today. So we're going to do an NFL immaculate grid. We did this last week on the podcast. And if you're not familiar, and this is the first time you're hearing about it, it's a little guessing game where you're going to take teams, different teams, and sometimes statistics, and you have to find a player that fits. Either they played for 2 different teams or they played for a team and reached a statistical milestone. Mitch and I did this on the podcast last week. We got 8 out of 9, which is pretty damn good, I feel like. We had some good picks there. Couldn't quite finish it out. So Jordan's joining us this week. And does that mean we're getting all 9?
No, it doesn't.
You're supposed to instill confidence in us, Jordan. What is this?
Hey, listen, if this were NBA, no problem, boys. NFL, I don't know a single lineman's name or a single defensive player's name. So we'll see.
All righty. Well, let's jump right into it. I'm going to read the grid for those that are not watching live and can't see this and you're listening along. I'll read it off for you. So from the top, we've got the Los Angeles Chargers, the Miami Dolphins, and a 1,000+ yard receiving season. And down the left-hand side, horizontally, we have the Dallas Cowboys, Green Bay Packers, and Detroit Lions. Mitch, where do you want to start on this? Do you want to pick one of these teams and then just go through?
Let's start with the Lions and the 1,000-yard receiver.
Okay.
And just do Calvin Johnson.
All right.
Get it out of the way.
Do we want to try to think of a more rare name that was going to get a little less? Is like a Golden Tate? Like, could we go a Golden Tate? Are we feel confident he got 1,000 yards in a season? Is there, or we could go Herman Moore? I mean, that might be
Herman Moore.
Yeah, I think the receiving ones are going to be easy enough where we should go for the clout of the difficult answer.
A little more off the beaten path.
Yeah, right.
So what do we think? Do we feel Golden? Can we go Golden Tate? I feel like he definitely had 1,000-yard season, right?
I don't know if he did. Maybe.
I feel like he should have, right?
I kind of feel like he should have too.
Okay.
I don't want to get it wrong on the first
surprise.
Hey, I'm outvoted 2-1. If you guys want to do Golden Tate, you guys go Golden Tate.
There's a lot of pressure on the
There's a lot of pressure.
One, let's come back.
A lot of pressure after I just said I'm trash. Packers is easy.
Packers.
Packers is easy. So
Jordan's got the pick here. Jordan,
everybody's brain is going to go Jordy right away, right? Because he's the most recent one that people will think of. What about a sneaky little Donald Driver? It's the other huge name, but he played so long ago that.
If you want to go really old, Don Hudson.
Also applies.
Hudson.
Also applies. I'm pretty sure, Mo, you're right on that.
Is it with a T?
With a T.
On Hudson?
Yeah.
Do we want to go it?
I feel so much pressure right now. I know for a fact Donald Driver did it like 7 times.
Mitch, what's the call?
I'm down to trust Mo.
I'm almost positive on Don Hudson.
I am also almost positive.
Let's do Don Hudson. 1%.
We go 1%er, Mo. Hey,
wow.
Look at you.
Great call. Great call. Okay, Dallas Cowboys 1,000 receiving yards season. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of different names we could go here, but
Roy Williams.
Oh, that's a good one. I don't feel 100% that he had on the 1,000 yards, but I do like the name. Yeah. Which one is it though? Uh-oh. Is it
Well,
Rowan Williams 2002 to 2010? Or is it 2004 to 2011?
2002 to 2011.
That's not either of them.
Well,
So it's not that.
I can't see.
Thank you, Immaculate Grid. Appreciate that.
I
Oh,
think,
2004, 2010. Sorry.
Maybe we go different.
Hey, I have a sneaky Lions one, guys.
Oh, a Lions one? Okay, let's go Lions.
First of all, I'm 99% Golden Tate is correct, but
Okay.
what if we go a sneaky Marvin Jones who did it recently? I think it was like 2017, but he
Ooh,
could not have done it more than that.
Marvin Jones? I kind of like it.
I like that
Or
too.
Kenny Galladay? Did Kenny Galladay
Kenny
have 1,000
Galladay
yards? Did he hit
was
1,000 yards
huge.
though?
I don't know if he hit 1,000 yards. He was huge for a season,
Yeah.
though. I'm
I like
pretty
Marvin
sure
Jones.
Marvin Jones got over 1,000.
What do we say, Mo? How are we feeling? Marvin Jones? Can we
I'm
send
cool
it?
with Marvin Jones. Yeah.
Okay. 4%.
4%.
Wow.
Okay. All right.
That's a great
That
pick.
was terrifying, by the way. I
That's
was
a
like,
great
I'm
pick.
pretty sure I remember him doing it kind of recently, but also I'm not sure.
Okay, Cowboys 1,000-yard season. Do we want to go risky or do we want to go something like a little more straightforward here?
We got a 1% and a 4%. We could probably get away with a little bit more chalk here.
You know,
Like we could go TO.
no,
Good.
that's gonna be so easy.
You think so? I don't know if
Mo,
guess
I think
don't
the old
associate it with
ones-
Cowboys. That's my thing, but
I think on these people just go with the first name that pops into their head. And so the
like
old
CeeDee
guys
Lamb.
are sneaky.
We could go Michael Irvin.
What
We
about
could go-
what about Jason Witten?
Oh, that's a good one.
I like that one a lot.
That's a good one because it's
Just
not
don't go wide receiver
it's
at all.
1,000-yard,
Yeah.
5%.
That's so sick.
pitch. Let's
Love
go.
that.
We're 3 in, and we've gotten a 1%, a 4%, and a 5% so far. That is
If
great.
only it was
Let's-
just this, boys, we'd be nasty.
Yes.
Now we got to do the ones we can't figure out.
yes, that is true. Let's keep in the Packers because we got
Oh,
Jordan
I
here.
got one.
Okay, what do you got?
Miami Dolphins, Detroit Lions, Scott Mitchell.
Yes. Oh, it's so good. My colleague at KSL Sports, Scott Mitchell, who hosts our radio, 13%. That is a surprising number for Scott Mitchell. 13%.
That's high. That's high.
Backed up Dan Marino, Miami, was a 3-year starter in Detroit with Herman Moore.
Packers, Chargers.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, let's try to think Packers, Miami. Let's try to go Packers, Miami right now since we're kind of in this Miami vein.
Mark Brunell didn't play in Miami, did he?
Dude, I don't think there's
he was at Jacksonville.
Jacksonville, that's it.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's like an offensive skill player that's played for both of these teams.
Yeah. The
I, of
offensive
course,
skill
could be
players
wrong.
Don't leave Green Bay. That's the problem.
Right,
Like they
exactly.
stay there
Exactly.
forever. So it's just a few years at the end of their career sort of thing. What about like
Yeah.
a tight end? There's a lot of tight ends that have gone through Green Bay. Like a Mercedes Lewis.
I don't think
Randy
he was
Mc-
ever a Dolphin.
Randy
I don't think he was a
McMichael.
dog.
I don't even know who that is.
Randy McMichael was a tight end for the Dolphins.
Okay. Yeah.
Did he
So if
play for
Jordan
the
doesn't know him, then he
Packers?
probably did. Do you think you don't know if he played for the Packers?
I'm not
I
100%
have
sure.
no idea.
Yeah.
These are tough teams to pair up with the Packers. The Chargers and the Dolphins are not like common Packer trade partners.
Who's the middle linebacker right now for Green Bay that just had the big year last year? Devondre Campbell?
Yes.
Did he play for Miami?
It sounds like a Miami name, but I cannot tell you authentically if he did.
Doesn't it? I kind of feel like it
It
does.
sounds it sounds like a Miami name.
Oh, no. You know
I
who I'm
don't
thinking
think
of?
so. No. I don't think so.
Randy McMichael played for the Chargers and the Dolphins. That's what it was.
Okay.
Man,
What about is there a
Chargers.
Green Bay Chargers one that sticks out to you, Jordan?
Chargers. No, both of these teams are tough. Both of these teams are tough.
We got a
Yeah.
tough draw this week, boys.
Yeah.
Chargers, Green Bay.
Oh, you know what? Let me think. Let me try to think. My BYU brain is going now, and I know Ty Detmer played for Green Bay, and I'm just trying to remember where else he ended up in his short
Did
career.
he go to Miami?
I don't know if he went to Miami. I think he went to like Philly at one point, and I don't remember where else Detmer ended up. That is, backup quarterbacks. What about like a Brett Hundley? Did he end up in LA? I think he ended up with the
Brett
Chargers
Hundley
as a
is a
backup.
Raven.
He was. I know he ended up in Cleveland for a little bit.
I think he might be with the Ravens right now.
You think he's with the Ravens now? Yeah,
That sounds right to me for some reason.
Miami. Dallas. I'm thinking of Miami and Dallas now.
We've only gotten our 1,000-yard wide receiver seasons right now, and we've got Miami and Detroit. We still got quite a bit on the board. So if there's any of these guys that stick out to you that you feel confident in a player, let's go for it.
Yeah,
what about
I don't know if we're getting the Packers,
Chargers,
boys.
Cowboys, like a Sean Merriman? Did he play for both of those?
No.
Oh, Chargers, right?
Dallas and Miami. Zach Thomas.
Zach Thomas.
Okay.
Zach Thomas.
Zach Thomas, Dallas and Miami. 1996, 2008, 20%. Oh, Mitch coming in clutch. Mitch is
come on, man.
Carrying as always.
Miami and Green Bay. Jason Taylor didn't play in Green Bay, did he?
No. I don't think so, at least.
What about Cameron Wake? Not in Green Bay?
I don't think so. Lions, Chargers. Yeah, see, the problem here, boys, is my fantasy football brain just kicks in, and so all I can think of are skill position players. And I'm like, there's none. There's none. So
can't think of a defensive player, offensive lineman to save our lives. We have 4 remaining folks. If you guys are listening or following along, we need
drop them in the comments. I won't look, I promise.
We need Los Angeles Chargers. We're going to look for a lot. We need a Charger and a Cowboy, a Charger and a Packer, and a Charger and a Lion. Maybe we should try to stick in that. Like, think of Chargers, because we got 3 teams we've got to pair those up with. So
yeah.
What about
Chargers?
What about? Do we remember any Chargers wide receivers from like the LT Phillip Rivers era?
What about Keenan McCardell?
Yes. Don't remember where he played at all.
Was he LA and Dallas?
I don't even know what is he a wide receiver?
He was a wide receiver.
Yeah.
Keenan McCardell. That's sticking out to me.
Where did Jared Cook? Didn't Jared Cook play for the Packers?
He did.
Yep.
Jared Cook.
Jared Cook would have been a Packer Charger. Yep.
14%.
Good one.
Oh, wow. For as much as we've struggled, and again, we have 3 left, we have gotten at most a 20%er on Zach Thomas. That is
Jared Cook feels we should have gotten that one sooner.
Yeah.
That feels a little dumb of us.
It's hard to think all the time. There's a lot of stuff going on here.
I'm just staring at a white page with a couple green squares on it.
The brain just stops thinking immediately. So we need Chargers, Cowboys, Chargers, Lions, Dolphins, Packers. And we are relying on Jordan for this Packers one because he is the Packers fan. So
we ain't getting it, boys.
We need some sort of contribution. No, I'm just kidding. 3 left here. Chase Daniel. Chase Daniel was a backup for the Chargers. Did he back up in Detroit or Dallas? I don't
think he was a Lion.
I don't feel like Dallas. I almost kind of felt like Detroit maybe. There's a lot of random backups. So I'm trying to think of like backup quarterbacks in LA, like a Scott Tolzien. He had to have played for like Dallas and
he played
LA,
for
right?
Everybody.
He played for Dallas. I know that for sure.
Oh, Dallen.
He played for LA. What's up?
Ryan Leaf
Ryan Leaf.
for Dallas and LA.
Really?
Ryan Leaf.
I think Ryan Leaf was a backup in Dallas.
Was he?
Started in San Diego, backup in Dallas. Do we feel good about it? You want to go for it?
I feel pretty confident. I don't know.
Hey,
I don't
listen,
know.
I'm not. Mo is
I feel
the
pretty good.
sport historian. Who am I to argue with him?
We're going for it. Mitch. Nailed
How?
Nailed it.
How?
it. 37% on Ryan Leaf. We got 2 left, folks.
Holy
We are
smokes.
immaculate
Mitch,
still.
What did your brain dispose of for you to keep all of this information?
We started talking. Everything common sense, like normal life skills.
High school geometry instantaneously gone. We
Yeah,
got to remember
gone.
2001 Dallas Cowboys backup
We have to.
quarterbacks.
Okay, so 2 remain. Chargers, Lions, Dolphins.
This Packers one is
Packers.
like an offensive lineman. I know
The
it.
Packers Dolphins one is going to be tough.
Yeah.
Bakhtiari's been there his entire career, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's not Bakhtiari. It's going to be a lineman, and it's not a current lineman. I don't think.
Yeah.
Lions, Chargers, guys. I feel like there's an obvious one for some
Yeah.
reason. Like those two
Yeah.
teams just seem.
Lions and
This
Chargers.
is killing me. This is killing me.
Just yeah.
There's a name. There's okay. I'm trying to think of skill position player names from Miami that might have left.
yeah.
Tyreek Hill.
The problem
No,
with Green
I'm
Bay is
thinking-
that their
I'm
skill
thinking-
positions are so like
They don't
They
go
just-
anywhere.
yeah, those guys just stayed there for so long.
So like,
That's why I'm saying it's
like-
got to be like a defensive back or an offensive lineman.
well, no, like, so I'm thinking, like, Mark Clayton, who is a Dolphin wide receiver,
Uh-huh.
maybe had a year at the end of his career with the Packers. Mark
Jordan,
Clayton.
do you remember any Green Bay Packers backup quarterbacks over the years that sat behind Favre? or Rodgers?
There haven't been many. Like in the same with the skill positions. It's like the ones outside of Brett Hundley,
Mhm.
the backups are who you know from like far forward.
Like
Outside of
who?
third stringers, in which case I have no idea.
Right. Yeah. All right, boys, we got to do something here. We got 2 guesses left. We got to throw something out there for the
God,
folks. We have
Lions,
anything that
Chargers.
feels something familiar, any just inkling, just an itch that says we should try this.
I'm not even 100% sure. I think we go Mark Clayton, Dolphins, Packers.
I'm down to try it.
Okay.
I'm not even 100% confident. But that's like sticking out, I guess.
1983, 1993, Mark Clayton. Is that the right one?
Yeah.
Okay.
No
8%.
shot.
Mitch?
No shot.
Mitch-Mo.
How?
8%. All right.
Okay,
Mitch,
boys,
tell us-
listen. I
Let's do it on the
have a
last one.
complete and total guess for this last square. So if we don't
Okay.
get anything else, this might be worth a shot. I know he was the backup for the Chargers. I don't know if he played for the Lions. Justin Jackson might be a decent guess.
Oh.
But I have no idea if he was ever a Lion. For some reason,
Yeah.
that name just like is for some reason like sounds kind of right.
What
So if
about
we get nothing else, guess that.
Dan Orlovsky?
Oh, did he play
Or
for
no,
the Chargers?
Curtis Painter?
I don't know about Painter.
I have no idea on Painter. If it were Dan Orlovsky, I feel like we would have come to that sooner.
I just don't remember where else he played. That's
I don't
my problem
either.
with Orlovsky.
I don't either. Somebody call ESPN.
Put me on the phone with Dan. Where'd you play?
I need
Okay,
Dan's
so we've
stat.
got Chargers Lions is the final one. Jordan,
I
what was
feel-
the name that you mentioned?
Justin Jackson, the backup
Justin
running back
Jackson.
for the Chargers, not that long ago.
I'm
And again, that's a total I have no idea if he was ever a Lion.
And Mitch, what was the one we just talked about?
I was doing Orlovsky or
Orlovsky.
Curtis Painter. I think Curtis Painter might be the more obvious one.
Yeah, see, I don't even know. Honestly,
I have no idea who that human
Yeah.
is.
And he only played 4
Curtis
seasons.
Painter was a backup when Andrew Luck was there. Actually, when Peyton Manning went down with the neck injury,
When Luck,
before
we're
they
not
drafted
looking for the
Luck.
Colts. We're looking for the Chargers and the Lions.
No, I think he played for both.
For the Colts, the Chargers, and the Lions?
I think so.
Okay.
But like I said,
Yeah.
Orlovsky is probably the better bet. He had the longer career.
We do know he did play 10 years. Do we feel okay sending it on this final one on Dan Orlovsky for Detroit Lions, Los Angeles Chargers?
We're sending it no matter what guess we put in.
Yes. Is there any other names that feel better for Lions Chargers? Like, I like this backup quarterback,
I almost
idea.
took a stab on like a 70s guy like John Hadel, but like I don't think that's it. I don't think that would matter.
Yeah.
Send it on
right.
Orlov.
Let's do it. We're sending it. Dan Orlovsky. Oh.
Nope. There it goes. Hey, in the comments right now, if you're watching live, go Google for me if Justin Jackson was ever a Lion and drop it in the comments. I need to know. It's gonna bother me.
I gotta look. I'm looking it up right now.
I'm looking up John Hadel.
I have no reason to think he was outside of like just pure
Oh my
feel.
goodness.
No, it wasn't.
Jordan.
No, it wasn't.
He was a Charger from 2018 to 2021 and a Detroit Lion in 2022.
No way, dude.
Oh my
We should
god.
have trusted Jordan.
He was a Lion last season?
He had the guess. He knew it, and we didn't trust him. Wow.
Dude,
Wow,
that was purely like I scrolled through Sleeper one time and saw his name with the Lions or something. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's correct.
And John Hadel, we would have had correct on Chargers, Packers.
I cannot believe that just happened.
He was a Packer for 1975.
8 out of 9 on the Immaculate Grid. Yet again, Mitch, we come up short on the last guess, just like we did last time.
I'm disappointed I'm disappointed myself.
Thanks for the contributions. We should have trusted you. We should have.
That was like, dude,
gone with it.
Justin Jackson with the Lions was like a flavored LaCroix where it like doesn't taste like what it's supposed to taste like. It tastes like it was in the room where it was made. And then it's like, it's strawberry. That was Justin Jackson in the Lions for me. It's like, it just feels kind of right for no reason.
Love it. Wow. The Immaculate Grid has been fun. It is a test. And guys, if you haven't tried it out, you could try it at ImmaculateGrid.com. But yeah. A lot of fun. If you had any names that you were just screaming at us to pick, please let us know in the comments. Any obvious ones we missed or anything like that. But well done, guys. That was pretty damn good. And we got some really rare names up there as well. So you love to see it.
You'd love to see it.
All righty, Mitch, I think it's time for the top 5.
Oh, boy. Yeah, this is we've been doing our quarterback series, our quarterback by the decades series in the top 5. And I'll tell you what, this is a good one. This is a really good one. We've been talking about the 70s, which were far out. We've been talking about the 80s, which were bitching. But we're going to talk about the 90s right now. And we talked about the 90s, excuse me. But it's time to move into the new millennium, the birth of the new quarterback. And on this week's edition of Mitch-Mo's Top 5 List of the Week, we're going to be doing the best quarterbacks of the 2000s.
Do you feel like this list was any harder knowing that this is the era that you truly grew up in as a football fan, the one that you probably have the most information and knowledge on and just a personal, like, firsthand view and experience on? Did that make it any harder or did it make it easier?
It made it harder by about 576%.
Okay.
look, it was such a good era for quarterbacks. And like I said, when we started with the 60s, right? We didn't grow up watching 60s, 70s, 80s quarterbacks, right? And we saw the tail end of really the 90s quarterbacks. The 2000s quarterbacks, that was the first era where we saw their entire careers. And so it became a lot harder to kind of cipher through what we were going to have on, who was making the top 5, who was making honorable mention. But I feel pretty confident with what I got. And quite honestly, I feel like they're in the right order. I do feel like they're in the right order. So let's start off with the honorable mentions. Michael Vick, Kurt Warner, Ben Roethlisberger, Jeff Garcia, Carson Palmer, and Brett Favre. And the reason Brett Favre...
How dare you?
I know. Jeff Garcia not making the top 5 is ridiculous.
That's what I'm saying, Dallen. That's what I'm saying.
That was the first jersey I ever owned. A Niners Jeff Garcia jersey. Thank you.
Look, Jeff Garcia was a great, sign him 2 weeks before the season starts, and then he puts together a 12-4 season for you. He was a great quarterback. I know where you're mentioning Jordan, Brett Favre. Brett Favre's
I'm joking. He's not top 5.
But his greatest success came in the 90s, right? That was where his greatest success came from. And so I do have to shout him out in the honorable mentions, but he's not making the top 5 for the 2000s. As much as I am a Brett Favre guy, I mean, Brett Favre might be as a Bears fan, he might even be one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time.
Hey, he threw you the most interceptions you guys ever saw. So
yeah, he made us look pretty good. And I've never had a quarterback to brag about. So Sid Luckman, 1948. That's the last guy. Let's get into the top 5 though. Starting at number 5, Dallen, we're going with the late great Steve McNair. Steve McNair is making the top 5 here. A 62-42 record throughout the 90s, 62% completion percentage, 124 touchdowns to 183 interceptions. He had that great run with the Titans in the early 2000s, almost knocking off the greatest show on turf, St. Louis Rams. Look, the guy's situation was full of glory and full of tragedy, right? He was involved in a very unfortunate situation that cut his life short. I think that had he been playing longer, we would be talking about him in the top 3 of the 2000s. I think that this guy really was a special talent coming out of Alcorn State. The running ability, the ability to play, make, and create on the run. Steve McNair was really, truly a special talent. And so he's going to get the number 5 nod on my list.
Yeah, a bit of a surprising pick. And I did notice you left off Big Ben. And as someone who doesn't like Big Ben that much, I love that Steve McNair gets in over him. So I am on board with this pick.
Yeah, I mean, and Big Ben won 2 Super Bowls in the 2000s. So I have to get off the 90s. I'm still stuck in the 90s. It won 2 touchdowns or 2 Super Bowls in the 2000s, but the longevity of success wasn't there for him. So moving on to number 4 on the list. Number 4, we're going to Donovan McNabb. Donovan McNabb, the product out of Syracuse. 208 touchdowns, 93 interceptions, a 90-45-1 career record throughout the 90s. Surprisingly completed under 60% of his passes, only 59.5%, over 31,000, almost 32,000 yards passing, excuse me. But the guy kind of was the first introduction to him and Steve McNair kind of at the same time were kind of that introduction into the new age quarterback with the ability to use the legs and create on the run, kind of making way for guys like Russell Wilson. And what I assume would be Bryce Young, the guys that can create with their legs and create with their arm at the same time, but also have the ability to tuck and run at the same time. Donovan McNabb was part of that movement, and that's why he gets number 4 on the list.
Cover athlete on the first football video game I ever played, Madden 06, baby.
Wow. There you go. I love that. That's a great pick because he had a great career and went to the Super Bowl, went to they went to 3 straight NFC Championship games, the Eagles did. So,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of success, didn't get the Super Bowl rings, so we don't think about him amongst those other names, but
went to a Super Bowl in 2005, I believe, and they played the Patriots during their run.
Yep. And then he got the cover in 2006.
Yep, he sure did. Number 3 on the list, I'm going to go with Drew Brees. Drew Brees is going to be there, 68 and 53. So maybe the winning percentage isn't quite there what it would be with the other quarterbacks. But the raw numbers are there: 202 touchdowns, 110 interceptions, almost 31,000 passing yards, completing almost 65% of his passes. It's very clear that his best years came when he went to New Orleans, right? He had some good years in San Diego, but once they drafted Phillip Rivers, he gets moved to New Orleans. He brings that first Super Bowl title to the city. This was post-Hurricane Katrina. The impact that he had on that city and that culture, parlayed with his fantastic play and his sustained success, Drew Brees has to be one of the best quarterbacks of the 2000s. And that's why he lands on number 3 on the list.
Yeah, love that. And the fact that he's number 3 and the 2010s statistically are a better decade for him. So he did win the Super Bowl in the 2000s, but I mean, yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no spoiler, but that list will come in a couple of weeks. But number 2 on the list, and Dallen, this is where the controversy starts.
Oh.
I get nervous actually talking about this. Number 2 on the list is going to be Tom Brady.
Oh, I love this. I love this. Because you're right, Mitch. You're right. Let's hear it. Let's hear why he's number 2.
Number 2 on the list, Tom Brady, 97 and 30 record, 225 touchdowns, 99 interceptions, almost 31,000 passing yards. He's got all the accolades in the world. He does. He has all the accolades in the world with the big Super Bowl victories, Super Bowl 31, Super Bowl 36, Super Bowl 38. The tuck rule game, he has the big moments. He wasn't the most successful and the most polarizing player of his era while having the success. He just wasn't. There was one player above him that personified the quarterback of the 2000s. Tom Brady wasn't that guy. He might be it for the 2010s. And no doubt in my mind, Tom Brady is the greatest of all time. He's not the greatest of the 2000s.
100%. This is the 100% correct take because his better decade was the 2010s anyways. He won more in the 2000s. Statistically, Brady, as a quarterback, as a player, he was much better in the 2010s than he was in the 2000s. So this is the correct take. The accolades, the success he has, he's undoubtedly got to be in the top 3, probably top 2, but there is a player that was a better quarterback and more representative of the decade. You are absolutely right, Mitch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Peek behind the curtain here. Pre-show, Dallen leaves the room for a half a second, and Mo goes, "Hey, man, I got to do something, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it." And I'm like, "You have to. It's the right take." And so, Dallen, I'm so glad that you're on board here.
You were scared. You were afraid.
I know where this is where my heart was. This is where my heart was. My head was telling me something different. Jordan absolutely talked me into follow your heart.
Love it.
And do the right thing and put Peyton Manning as number 1 for the decade.
Yep.
Which he is.
Yeah.
115 and 45. 115 and 45. Possibly the most put the Indianapolis Colts as the most successful franchise throughout the 2000s, regardless of the Super Bowl wins, right? They are the most successful franchise in football throughout the 2000s. 115 and 45, over 42,000 passing yards, 314 touchdowns, 138 interceptions. numbies for
Seriously.
Peyton Manning. And by the way, he was partnered up with Marvin Harrison, which might be the greatest quarterback wide receiver duo in NFL history.
Yep.
They rival Montana Rice, right? And they might even be better. You'd have to really talk about it and dig deep into it. But Peyton Manning, he was also a 4-time MVP during the decade. I'm so glad we're all on the same page here because I was so prepared to go to battle, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to, but I was prepared to go to battle. But Peyton Manning is by far, not even by far, but he is better than Peyton Manning was in the 2000s, and that's why he gets the nod for number 1.
I love that. Mitch had the armor ready. He was like, I got the defenses set. The turrets are locked. I'm ready to defend myself. And you didn't even have to, my friend. We're all good.
Good.
This
I'm
is
so
the
glad.
correct take. It's just simple as
Dude,
that.
and
I love it.
Shout out to Peyton Manning doing for kids what Kobe did for kids. When in classrooms, we shoot waste into the wastebasket and we say, Kobe, anytime I throw a football and I can't throw a spiral, I just go, hey, listen. Peyton Manning did all that while not being able to throw a spiral. So shout out to him.
Peyton Manning threw an ugly ball. It was ugly.
But
you know what? It went where it needed to go every single time.
Yeah, what was the quote? I may throw a lot of ducks, but I throw a lot of ducks for touchdowns. Like that's Peyton Manning, man.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, that's a great top 5 yet again. Best quarterbacks of the 2000s. Mitch, run through the list one more time for the folks.
Number 5 is going to be Steve McNair. Number 4, Donovan McNabb. Number 3, Drew Brees. Number 2, Tom Brady. And number 1, Peyton freaking Manning.
There you go. Before you get angry and you don't hear Tom Brady at the top and you think, what's going on? Just hear Mitch out. Hear the argument. He's got a compelling case for why Peyton Manning is the best quarterback of that decade.
Were there any that I didn't mention in the honorable mentions that you guys would have wanted to hear? Because there were some that I left out.
Yeah, I mean, Big Ben was the name that surprised me most, I guess, to hear in the honorable mentions, knowing he wasn't going to be in the top 5. But again, as I already stated, like I'm cool with Steve McNair and McNabb over him for sure.
I left some like Super Bowl appearances out, so like I left Matt Hasselbeck out.
Yeah,
but subject of a great team and a great run game, right? Sean Alexander was the great one. Dante Culpepper was another one that I left out.
I love Culpepper. He was so much hype though. He never. I left
a Super Bowl winner out of my honorable mentions. Brad Johnson.
All of these guys had moments, right? Like really, really high moments. But the longevity thing you're talking about is just why would they ever come up when you're talking about an entire decade?
And that was my thought behind this list was like, why? Like, where do they fit in this? And they don't. They just don't. Even the guys in the honorable mentions fit with longevity, except for Mike Vick because he went to jail. But it's like
he had to come back in the 2010s. But a couple of years. But no, I think you nailed it, Mitch. Great top 5 as always. Best quarterbacks of the 2000s, and the next time we hear it will be the final version of this summer series that you've been busting out for us. That's
so you think.
Oh.
So you think. And Dallen, I would like to invite you and Jordan onto this as doing our top 5 quarterbacks of the future.
Wow.
Oh. Okay.
So we're going to do our 2010s. We're early in the 2020s. It's hard to do anything then. I want to finish this series off with our top 5 quarterbacks of the future.
I like that.
So I wanted to announce that now so we can have some anticipation towards it.
I love it. There you go. All right. So, okay. We've got a couple of Mitch's top 5s left in our preview before the season starts, and we'll look forward to that. The 2010s will be a tough one next time. So we'll look forward to what you do there, Mitch.
All right. Yeah. Excited to do it.
Okay, time to wrap up, culminate the podcast with the big meat today, the 10-round mock draft. Mitch and I have done a mock draft, I think, like for the last 4 years, every time we've done a little fantasy football preview. And I believe we've had Jordan on at least once to do one of these with us in the past. So
the first one we did.
That's right. Yep. The very first one. And this time we'll get to do it with a little help from the video screen, which is fun. First time on the live stream, so we can actually get a view of it. So if you're listening along, you will have to just listen, but come over to YouTube right now, youtube.com/sportshour guys, and you can actually watch this mock draft live and see the names as they pop up. But we're going to do a little 10-round mock. Setup here is just pretty straightforward. PPR, league, 1 quarterback, 2 flex. We are all drafting at our positions in our actual redraft league that will be taking place in the next probably couple of weeks, depending on when we nail it down. So a little practice for us where we're going to be looking at, though our league is set up a little different than this one. But it's always a fun exercise to see what names pop up and sort of workshop ideas of players in the range that you like, strategies to go through. And that's how we'll approach this today on the mock draft. So anything else before we jump in, guys?
Let's go.
Let's do it. Let's get into it.
All righty.
Well, sound effects.
I know I turned it off. I don't want that every time. Sorry. Unless you like it, I'll keep it on for you, Mitch.
No, that's a nice touch. That's a nice touch. I got the number 2 pick overall. And really when I look at this is running back is that's the premier position you have to lock down, right? Because there's a very shallow top tier, and then it kind of falls off very quickly after maybe the top 6 or 7 guys, especially being at the number 2 pick, where you have to wait to come around for the next, 14 picks for you to actually be a part of this draft. So I'm going to be looking at running back here, and it's tough not to just take the chalk guy. And I think that Christian McCaffrey is the right pick here.
Yeah. Now, we did have Justin Jefferson go at the 101 overall in this situation, which I think he's probably the top position player on the board. Let's say, though, Mitch, you are in that position at the 101. Do you consider Justin Jefferson at all? If you're at the 101, would you still go McCaffrey with the value of running back and sort of how that position looks like this year?
I think that's tough because Justin Jefferson is he's so good. He's so good. And it's really hard to – I have a hard time picking a wide receiver at 101. Maybe, Jordan, you have a different take on this. But I still feel like I would go the running back here because the fall off is much steeper at the running back position, waiting that long, than it is at the wide receiver position. So I think I still would go running back.
Yeah, running back is scarcer this year even than it's been in previous years. It feels like with injuries and guys that we know to be pillars of the position previously straight up not having jobs. But even with that, Mo, I think Justin Jefferson has separated himself so far from the rest of the pack that he's my personal 101. But I have no issue if you wanted to take Christian McCaffrey first in your draft, if you wanted to do that, but it would be Jefferson for me.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I would not envy someone having to make that decision, I guess. Cause I guess there's no wrong ways to go with either of those players, but that is really tough for me there. I think you can't really go wrong with either of those picks, but Jordan, you're up now at the 5th pick.
Yeah, I'm at 105, and I was fully prepared to have a long conversation where I deliberated between Travis Kelce and Cooper Kupp, because in your drafts, that's probably what you're going to have to do at this position. And so I will quickly say, I previously in my fantasy football career have always been a punt the tight end position kind of guy, just because I didn't think the value of tight end early was worth taking them as early as you needed to. This year, I think it's different. The separation at the tight end position between Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews, who is the second best tight end in football, is like 30 dudes. So if I had Travis Kelce here at 105, I would have taken him here. But I also have Jamar Chase just gift wrap for me at 105. And so I have nothing to think about. I'm taking Jamar Chase.
Yeah. I like that. And I think Kelsey is really interesting because I'm right there with you, Jordan. Traditionally, I am like, I don't really care about tight end, but this year, Kelsey specifically in the first round, I would feel very comfortable, especially with the running back situation. And you're comparing him to the wide receivers around that range. He's basically a wide receiver one. Don't think about him as a tight end. Think about him as your top flex. And like, that's it, because that's the kind of numbers he's putting up. He's putting up, top flex kind of numbers. So
yeah.
I like
shout out real quick, boys. Michael in the comments. Yo, Michael, do you have a player in your league that drafts a quarterback early? If so, Kelsey might get there to you at 7. Otherwise, I don't know, buddy. That might be late.
Yeah, it's a great question. Michael asked, for those listening, I have the 7th pick in a 12-man league. I really want Kelsey. Do you think he can fall? Yeah, I mean, depends on if quarterbacks are high. If you play a super flex, quarterbacks are going to get bumped up. That might help. And
latest I see him falling is 6 because you're going to have exactly the way it went here, right? There's going to be Jefferson, McCaffrey, Eckler, Jamar Chase, probably Cooper Kupp at 5-ish range. And then you never know. Guys do crazier things taking somebody else there. So maybe at 7, it's not unheard of, but like 6 is right about as late as I see him going.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. All right, I'm up with the 108. Again, Jordan took Jamar Chase at the 105. Got another running back and wide receiver off the board for me here. This guy has fallen a bit, and I think he's a less sexy pick than he has been in years past because of the down year. But I'm going to go Cooper Kupp here because I think he's just poised for another really solid season. And the injuries and everything with the Rams just went so terribly last year that I understand people being hesitant to jump right back in on Cooper Kupp. But totally. At this point, right, I'm getting him as wide receiver 4 behind Jefferson, Chase, and Tyreek Hill at the 108. I feel very comfortable with Kupp. The numbers are going to be there for him to be a very solid wide receiver 1. And I don't like the running back options. So that one seems pretty easy for me.
Yeah, I think that Kupp is a solid pick here. And when you talk about people being skeptical on going back in on Kupp, I'm in a dynasty league right now where we're going to have a supplemental draft, and because of abandoned teams, and I got the number 1 overall pick in that supplemental draft. Cooper Kupp is one of the available guys. You bet your ass I'm going after Cooper Kupp.
Yeah,
you bet your ass I'm taking that guy because he is just so. What he contributes to that offense is so important, and I think that he's going to continue to be a target monster in that offense.
Yeah, I think that's fair. All right, I'm back up in the second round here at the 203. Got wide receiver on the board. Typically, I like to walk away with a running back in the first 2 rounds if the value is there. Just because with the running back position, wide receiver is so deep, you can get talent so late that I'm cool with waiting a little bit. The first quarterback's technically up here with Patrick Mahomes at 13, and you guys can weigh in here your thoughts on quarterback, but despite as good as Mahomes, Allen, all that is, in a 1 quarterback league, I'm not taking that in the second, probably even 3rd round. 4th round would probably be the earliest I'd consider quarterback.
Yeah, 1 quarterback leagues, I'm definitely punting. There's enough value lower down the board at quarterback that you can make up points and really not be that far behind guys. Like Patrick Mahomes is obviously going to put up way more points than your middle tier guys, but with the rest of your roster construction being better for punting, you're not going to lose that many points overall for punting, kind of for a middle tier, middle round kind of guy.
Mitch, are you the same way?
I don't know. Well, at this position, I might go double up on running back and then take the quarterback here.
Coming around in the 3rd round, you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah. So, at the position I'm at, I don't know if I'm feeling that way, but where you're at, I would go ahead and just lock down the wide receivers or one of the running backs because you're still going to get a top 5 running back at this point.
Yeah.
With only 4 taken off the board.
Yeah, quarterback's a little rich here. I'm going to go Nick Chubb. He's on the board for me. 4 guys off the board at running back, so he is the 5th running back on the board. And I feel very, very good getting Chubb and Cooper Kupp. I feel very good about that at 108, actually. So,
yeah, totally. I'm in a little bit of a weird spot here. There's Jonathan Taylor, who obviously has his very weird injury situation where he's obviously hurt, but according to him, he's not. There's Derrick Henry, who's obviously an absolute house. And then there's Josh Jacobs down here, who I actually like Josh Jacobs a lot this year at the running back position. But in order to take him, that means I'm passing up my guy in Devontae Adams. So what I'm considering here is nothing. I'm taking Josh Jacobs at the running back position, and I'm going to cry one single tear when I see Devontae Adams go to team 4 right after me.
Yeah, fair enough. I like getting the running back and the wide receiver in the first 2 rounds. You got a top running back 1 or a wide receiver 1 secured, and you don't have to sweat that depending on how the board comes back to you. So I like that
because
move.
running back dries up really fast right here. Like there's not a whole lot. Like you're looking at like Ramondre Stevenson basically is your next best option from here.
Yeah,
and that's why I'm starting to look at I have to take running back here. This is a tough spot to be in because if all the wide receivers go in this scenario, you're stuck. You have to take the 2 RBs and just hope that you can piece together a wide receiver core that's going to be good enough for you down the long haul. And then hope that one of those quarterbacks is there for you on the turn. God, this is a tough one.
You've got Christian McCaffrey so far. Mitch had the 102. So you'll get sort of not exactly back-to-back picks, but obviously pretty close here. We'll get to double up.
Yeah, and
Mitch, I will say this worked out beautifully for what you were just talking about doing and going double running back into elite quarterback. Yeah. You got to take the risk on Jonathan Taylor, but I mean,
it's a mock. It's an exercise. We could see how it plays out for you if you were able to, go that route.
Yeah, you know what? Let's take him. Let's take him now. Okay. Let's just take Jonathan Taylor. And the guy that I was hoping that was there is there. So let's go Jalen Hurts at the 302. The Jonathan Taylor thing is obviously assuming that he is going to be ready to go and playing for the majority of the season and that he doesn't have that huge fall off that he had last year. And so when I compare up McCaffrey and Taylor at the running backs and Jalen Hurts as my quarterback, basically I have 3 running backs and a quarterback all at the same time there.
Yeah.
And that's a really great feeling. So I feel good about that turn there.
Yeah, this is working out perfectly for me too, because I get to put my money where my mouth is from earlier in the show and take this year's wide receiver 3 in Chris Olave, which I obviously love. So we'll make that real quick.
You got your wide receiver 2 in Jamar Chase and your wide receiver 3 in Chris Olave. Look at that.
See, this is what I'm saying, Down. Look at that.
It's worked out perfectly. So Chase, Jacobs, Olave for Jordan so far. 2 wide receivers and the running back. I'm back up on the clock with Cooper Kupp and Nick Chubb already secured.
I do want to shout out Michael for saying James Conner, a great pick at the 4-5 round. So
yes, sneaky, kind of what I'm looking at.
Yeah, we'll see when he comes up. We were all pretty high on him on the sleeper, so we'll see who gets him, I guess, huh? I am up. I want to get a running back because again, running back is so thin and wide receiver is so deep that I feel like it's easy to grab wide receivers later and still feel really good about it. So Ramondre Stevenson, Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, that's sort of the range here. I am not going to lie. I'm not a big Ramondre Stevenson believer. I'm not at all. I'm actually absolutely out on it. I'm going to go Najee Harris here, which doesn't feel great. It's not sexy, but I think he's just going to get enough work play to be just a solid running back 2 for me. So, yeah. And then I'm back up. Calvin Ridley just went off the board.
That's crazy. That's earlier than I thought.
Yeah.
Sleeper is as high as you are on him, buddy.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I love it, obviously, but I'm surprised to see the bot take him that early.
Yeah, that's the 402. That's where he was drafted. I'm up at the 403. I've got my 2 running backs secured. I've got 1 wide receiver. Now I'm just going for like value here. Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, they're there. If I wanted to go quarterback, I don't think this is a bad spot to secure a top 5 guy in the 4th round. Again, that's where I said I would start considering taking somebody. I'm going to go Devontae Smith here, though. He's top player on the board. I like him over DK Metcalf. Think he's got maybe more of a clearly defined role and access to big target numbers. So I like Devontae Smith.
Yeah, so here at the 406, I guess this is for me now. There is an interesting thing to consider because I'm looking at a team where I have Jamar Chase, Chris Olave, and Josh Jacobs, and I am in a good, solid enough spot where Lamar Jackson is sitting here, and that could make a whole lot of sense. And I would not knock you at all for going that way. And the guy I actually want is going to be a little bit of a reach, to be honest with you, but I do want to build that really solid 2 wide receiver, 2 running back start. And again, put my money where my mouth is. I'm taking Aaron Jones right here.
I like it. I don't think that's too far off. I mean, the thing with reaches, and I'm sure you guys will agree here, when it's a guy that you like, if you believe in it, if you want him, go get him. If it's around early, don't sweat it. Don't sweat it. It's fantasy football. You're out there to enjoy it. You're out there to get the players you want. If you want a guy, go get him. You know, believe
if you're reaching, be okay with being wrong. As long as you're okay with being wrong, you get to have all the glory when you're right.
Exactly. Well said.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what? I think with right now with me being at the 409, with basically the top 2 tight ends, punt the position, like Jordan has talked about in the past, or Jordan just talked about a couple minutes ago, and focus on the other skill positions, come back and get a tight end later. I don't have a wide receiver yet. I think I could still get a wide receiver 1 at this spot. And so I'm going to go with a guy that's got a lot of diversity to him. I think the guy that can catch the football, run the football exceptionally well. I'm going to go Deebo Samuel at the 409.
Yeah.
Mitch just keeps drafting running backs. It's crazy.
You've got 4 running backs on your roster. That's all I see.
It's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, tons of running backs. But okay, let me take my first true wide receiver here. And I'm going to go with Amari Cooper.
Wow. And we just talked about Amari. And this is, I like this.
What is happening right now?
You waited on wide receiver, right? And you got your first 2 wide receivers around 4 and 5, and your top 2 wideouts are Deebo Samuel and Amari Cooper. I mean, you are there's no problems there. You're feeling great about your wide receiver situation, and you were able to secure 2 running backs and a quarterback already. So that wide receivers are just so deep. And there's really, I mean, all the guys, the sleepers we talked about, were all in those late teens, 16, 17, that range. There's guys in that range you can get that could be a solid wide receiver 1 for you this year that you don't have to sweat as much. So I think that's a really smart strategy there as far as the draft goes. And I think it's worked out really well for you so far.
Yeah, so far so good. Well,
yeah,
we'll see how it goes from 6 through 10, but
so sitting here with my next pick, 505, we have a guy who has slipped about 20 picks behind his ADP, and I'm in a position where now I wouldn't necessarily look to take a quarterback, but I have Lamar Jackson still sitting here, boys, and I would label myself a fool if I did not take that value. I'm going to take Lamar Jackson here with my 5th pick.
Yeah. That's, if you weren't going to do it, I would have done it. So I think that's, when he falls to you like that, you got to take him, and you're getting him here at what, QB6? I mean, that's great.
Yeah. Yep.
QB6 in the 5th round. So love that. I'm up here 508. I've got 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, no quarterback, no tight end. A couple of those guys up here at the top of this big board, and Justin Fields and George Kittle, which I could certainly consider. I don't think I'm going to go that route, though. I want to get good value. I want to get a guy that I feel like is going to be, I saw a name that intrigued me. Now I got to wait. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go, I don't love this. It's not sexy. I'm going to go another another running back here. 3 running backs to secure my spot. Know that I feel really solid. I'm going to go Dameon Pierce, 2nd year back out of Houston. Really good rookie year that was cut short by injury, but he should be the lead guy in that backfield, at least a running back 2. So I feel pretty good about that. Okay. And then, now I'm going to take him. I'm going to pass on Justin Fields, and I'm going to take Trevor Lawrence here. I'm going to take quarterback here. And I love the idea of Fields. Obviously, the rushing upside is huge, but man, I just believe in T-Law this year so bad. I just think he's going to have a huge breakout, like sleeper MVP candidate type season. So in the 6th round at this point, like I kind of love that. So I feel very comfortable taking him there.
Yeah, I love that pick too. I'm all in for Trevor Lawrence this year. I made a huge trade in Dynasty to get him. Like this, I am all aboard the Trevor Lawrence hype train. This pick here has me in a difficult spot. We're looking kind of at the players at the top of the list are Justin Fields, Miles Sanders, Christian Watson, Alexander Madison. I want to talk about Alexander Madison for half a second because Michael in the chat asked about him. Alexander Madison has no Dalvin Cook. He's the only guy in town, and he also has the third easiest strength of schedule for a running back. And all of that points towards a pretty solid season for Madison, but I just struggle with the ability. I don't know. Nobody was pushing for him to get rushes over Dalvin Cook or even split time when Dalvin Cook was in town, and now that Dalvin Cook is gone, it's just the excitement hasn't risen for me at all. Even given the circumstance. So I don't know. I'm kind of lukewarm on Alexander Madison. I'm totally cool with people being hyped on him. That's just not me. I am going to take the guy who I see as decent value here as a running back one. New team, new system, might be a good fit. Let's go Miles Sanders.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. The Madison conversation is interesting because right now he's still on the board. He would be running back 22. I'm certainly not I think there are people even comfortable taking him in top 15, 16, 18 range. I'm certainly not there.
Yeah.
But in this range, once you get past RB20, once we're now into the 6th, 7th round, yeah, I think that's when I'd feel comfortable with Madison. And I think there's some value in taking him there. I just wouldn't leap to get him early and project a breakout. I think I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to have to be a lot of proving in that offense. There's going to have to be a Miles Sanders is going to have to almost kind of rebrand himself from what he did in Philadelphia to do, to prove what he can do in Carolina. I have opposite feelings from you about Alexander Madison. Jordan. I am super excited about taking Alexander Madison, and to shout out Michael in the chat. I'm going to take him right here. I think that he'd be a great third back to have. And, he's going to have all the opportunity in the world. He's basically going to have what Dalvin Cook had. But it's just not going to be Dalvin Cook back there. It's going to be Alexander Madison. So,
Mitch, out of curiosity, given your team makeup right now where you're running back heavy, was there any consideration to just bite the bullet and take the 3 weeks off for Kamara?
No.
Okay.
No.
Just a thought.
Yeah, there is value there. I think you bring up a good point, Jordan. If you've drafted in a way where you already have two solid running backs like Mitch may have with McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor, then maybe that risk for Kamara is a little it's easier to take on that risk knowing what you have. In our situation here, if you're watching this, you can see team 1 drafted Kamara. He's their running back 1. That's an awful situation to be in.
Don't do that.
If you're hoping Alvin Kamara is your running back 1, he's missing 3 games and he's in a committee with Jamal Williams and Kendre Miller. So that's not the right situation. But as your running back 3, when you've got 2 solid options, I do like that. I think that could be an option.
Yeah. It absolutely could be. I have a lot more faith in what Alexander Madison is going to be able to do in Minnesota. Going into the 702, I think I could still wait on tight end. And man, this is tough. But I'm gonna go Brandon Ayuk from San Francisco.
Getting those San Francisco boys.
I was about to say, stacking the Niners receivers. You like that?
Yeah.
Okay, boys. I'm listen, listeners. If you play on Sleeper is disrespecting Darren Waller heavily. Darren Waller is still a top 5 tight end. The fact that the bots took, let's see, if you guys aren't watching live, TJ Hawkinson and George Kittle both went the previous round, and they're not better than Darren Waller. They're just not. And so Darren Waller reports coming out of camp is that he's the best receiver on turf for the Giants. I think it's a pretty good fit for him. Darren Waller's a pretty easy pick for me here at tight end. I'm not going to wait anymore.
I like that. And you're 7th round, so that's I think a great spot to take him. There's no reach there, very good value, and almost like the Kelsey thing. Yeah. Speaking of that, Michael's commenting this here. Waller's probably the number one weapon for Jones. That's what Michael's commenting. And yeah, and that's what I was about to actually add is much like Kelsey in Kansas City, don't think about him as a tight end. Think about him as the wide receiver one in that offense, which he very much, seemingly will be this year. So I like that. I like that a lot, Jordan. All right. 708. I've got my quarterback. I've got 3 running backs, 2 wide receivers. Now I'm just, looking for value. If there's a tight end I like, great. If not, we'll go somewhere else. I have already taken 3 running backs, but you can never have enough. And we talked about this guy. He was my pick at running back. I would be foolish if I didn't take James Conner, right? I mean, I brought him up already on this podcast. So James Conner in the 7th round, even as my running back 4, having already got a couple guys on the board, I feel very good about because, again, running back is just so sus. That might be all I take. I might take 1 handcuff, later rounds, and that might be it for me, but I'd feel pretty good about having those 4 guys.
Yeah, that's great value.
I would.
Crazy value.
Yeah. All right. And then at the 803, we got some tight end on board with Kyle Pitts potentially. I don't feel great about Pitts. Probably going to go wide receiver here. Let's just go Tyler Lockett. I think we're kind of overthinking it if we are second guessing Tyler Lockett. Guy has literally been like penciled in wide receiver like 10 to 15 like the last 4 years straight. Even with DK Metcalf there, it hasn't wavered. If anything, he's been better. Top 10 wide receivers. So yeah, in the 8th round, that feels awesome.
Yeah, there's a real possibility JSN pushes him to wide receiver 3 on the roster. But still, it's like you're not ever counting out Tyler Lockett's production. Like if the guy's on the field, he's going to catch a long pass. You know what I mean?
Well, he doesn't have to play outside. He can play in the slot and still be super, super productive. You know what I mean?
Very true. Very true. So I'm glad Mike Evans got taken 2 picks before me. That was going to be my pick. Mike Evans is almost a sleeper this year for the opposite reason. A lot of other guys are sleepers. People are just not paying attention because Evans is old and struggled at points last year. I'm in on a good year for Evans, so I like that pick a lot. And I will say the running backs right here dry up really, really fast. So I'm going to go ahead and take a guy that I'm still very high on, given a healthy season, in Javonte Williams.
Yeah, I like that. And just for those listening, the range right now, we're talking Cam Akers, James Conner, Rashad White, and Javonte Williams, who you just took. That's sort of the range of players. Right? And among those, yeah, I like Javonte a lot. What are your thoughts on Javonte, Mitch?
Yeah, I mean, just where's the health? We got to see the health.
Yeah.
And if he is healthy, we know the talent is there. We know that he can contribute to that offense, but we got to see the health first from Javonte.
Yeah, the kid's 23 and he's expected to play in the preseason, so I think we'll be okay.
All right. I love it. But you know what, Dallen and Jordan, I've punted on the tight end position for a while. There's still a guy here that I like even more than Kyle Pitts. And we talked about this offense and how fun this is going to be watched. How fun this is going to be to watch. I'm going to Evan Ingram. That's my tight end here.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So break this one down for me, Mo, because I was nodding like a lunatic thinking you were taking the value in Kyle Pitts there, and then you went Evan Ingram. So what just happened?
I like the quarterback situation a hell of a lot better. I like the passing situation. Like I think that there's going to be more opportunity for Evan Ingram to be involved in the passing in the passing game more so than Kyle Pitts. I think that Kyle Pitts has got Drake London there. And the quarterback situation is just clearly not as good as it is in Jacksonville. I think that we're going to see a lot of opportunities for Evan Ingram in the red zone. I think I like Evan Ingram a little bit more than Kyle Pitts in this situation.
Have you considered the fact that Evan Ingram is just a worse football player than Kyle Pitts?
I got it. No, I got it. I got it.
Hey, like your guy and shoot your shot at that position.
Let me
I guess.
Put my stamp down now. Evan Ingram will be higher in the tight end ratings than Kyle Pitts will be at the end of the year.
I will
Are
take
you
a bet
willing
with
to
you
go
on
on the
that
hill
right
with
now.
that?
Do you want to do a water bet, Jordan?
I will water bet that with you right now on the record.
Let's water bet it.
Okay.
Love it.
Done deal.
Okay. Evan Ingram finishes higher in the tight end rankings at the end of the season than Kyle Pitts. That's the bet. Yeah, I love it. I feel shaky about Pitts this year. I'm not convinced. It's just the talent is all there. Just how the role is going to fit. I would have questions about that. So I can understand if you're thinking tight end and you're not convinced on Pitts, go with the guy that you feel conviction on, Evan Ingram. I like it.
And I like Michael's comment that I could have waited on Evan Ingram.
Yeah.
I certainly could have. But
Yeah.
in this scenario where we only have 10 rounds, got to take a tight end at some point. So I went with Evan Ingram
Like
here.
it.
But certainly, yes, you are right, Michael. I could have waited on a tight end a lot later and probably gotten Evan Ingram probably a round or two later. But I stand by it. Evan Ingram going to finish higher than Kyle Pitts. Going into the 902, I think we go one more running back here, and I think this is a good value for a guy that's going to get a lot of work. I'm going to go David Montgomery.
Oh, yeah.
No Bears bias, but darn it, he does a lot of good work, and I think that he's going to be a guy that you could plug in at a flex from a time or two. I think that he's probably going to be around that RB3, RB4 rank, but a guy that you could definitely plug in as a flex and be, and rely on heavily.
All right, guys, I got 2 picks left here. I got to go wide receiver to close out. And I am so glad that the players before me took a bunch of running backs because it leaves me the receiver for my sleeper pick at quarterback. Just so you guys know what I'm looking at, I have George Pickens and Jordan Allison right here back to back. I'm taking George Pickens. George Pickens is somebody I'm obviously higher on for this season. I have to be. I called his quarterback a sleeper for the 2023 season. I really like the kid. That's a good value pick for me.
Yeah, very, very interesting. I think in that range too, when you're considering who's around him, I like the shot on that. This is just going to be a lot of young players, rookie, second year guys looking for a big breakout season. Why not George Pickens, especially if you're higher on Pittsburgh offense, like Jordan already stated with his Kenny Pickett take. So I like it. Okay, I am up. I've got 2 picks left. I don't have a tight end yet. I may end up taking one. 4 running backs. Got 3 wide receivers. Probably try to add another wide out here. Actually, I'll go Jordan Addison. I love Addison. I think he's going to have a very clearly defined role in this Minnesota offense to start his career. And Justin Jefferson is a freak. He's a target monster. We get all that. But Addison's going to survive and thrive in this. I think there's enough room in this offense for multiple players to be really good. So I'm not concerned about that too much, though obviously not a huge upside as a rookie, but could be pretty solid. So I like Addison there.
Honestly, I think compared to a lot of other wide receivers that have been taken, that might be a steal. Getting him that late is Jordan Addison because I think he's going to have that much of an impact on that Minnesota offense.
I like that. Well, I like the sound of that. So, I got to go tight end, I guess, with my final one. So I'll buy in on Pittsburgh too. We'll go Freiermuth here. And honestly, Freiermuth in the 10th round, not rushing on tight end, not feeling worried about it, getting all the players I got, and then walking away with Freiermuth at 10. That feels great for tight ends. So I'm very happy with that.
Hey, boys, I do just want to point out here, I get it. This mock draft is only a 10-team, 10 round, and so some guys are going to fall. But we all took quarterbacks. Look who is still available.
Yeah.
Tua Tagovailoa is still available. Guys, you can punt quarterback and do just fine. Yeah. Okay, guys, I got to take a wide receiver here. There's a smattering of wide receivers who are kind of mid, so I'm going to call my shot on a guy and a rookie who I like a lot. I took this guy in Dynasty, and I am overjoyed about it. I'm taking Zay Flowers out of Baltimore. Baltimore's got 2 receivers. They got Zay Flowers, and they got OBJ. And I don't think any of you guys hand up could say you're confident in OBJ's abilities in Baltimore. No. Zay Flowers is a freaking stud, man. I'm gonna throw my dart and take him here with my last pick.
Love that.
I love that pick for you. I also hate that right after you took Zay Flowers, my next pick went right off the board, which would have been Gabe Davis. So I'm forced. I'm going to take wide receiver. I'm going to take wide receiver. I think I'm just forced to take this guy, even though I don't really want to. I feel like I could have got him about a round later, but I'm going to go Cortland Sutton.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mo, it was Cortland Sutton. It was Elijah Moore there for me. Two guys that were like back to back, a little bit of a reach. I think both of those guys are going to be great and just fine fantasy value.
Yeah. No, I think they will be just fine. I think they'll be very comparable. I think that you can take them around the same spot, but my point being, I think that Gabe Davis has the prepotency to have the bigger games more so than Cortland Sutton. So,
yeah. And a better
Um,
quarterback situation, right, with Josh Allen as opposed to Russ at this point in his career and what that looks like. So I think that's
for sure.
That's fair there too with Gabe Davis. But there you go. That's the 10-round mock, guys. That is it. Let's get some instant reaction. Jordan, you look at your 10 picks in this mock. How you feeling? You feel great on the strategy with what you got?
Oh, I'm actually overjoyed with this team, excluding the Miles Sanders pick. I hate Miles Sanders. It just always will be the case, no matter if he's good or not. I just don't like the guy. But outside of that, Mo, in the last round, when you were talking about taking Gabe Davis, it was between Zay Flowers and Gabe Davis for me. And the reason I really went Zay Flowers was to stack with Lamar Jackson. It just felt like good value.
Mm-hmm.
But man, overall, boys, if I could roll with this team into redraft this year, I'm going to be in good shape.
Yeah. What about you, Mitch?
Yeah, I feel really confident in my rounds like 1 through 5. I feel like I drafted rounds 1 through 5 exceptionally well. 6 through 10, just, I feel like maybe I reached on Evan Ingram just a little bit too early. But I felt like I needed to snag the tight end when I need, at that point. I'm always super critical of my own team, though. I'm super critical of my own drafting strategy, but I feel really good about this team. And if I could take this team into a redraft league, I feel pretty comfortable with it.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm beating Jordan's. I don't know if I'm beating Jordan's team, but I feel pretty comfortable with it.
Jordan's is pretty stacked. It's nice to be right smack dab in the middle. Usually it works out pretty well for you. But I feel good. I feel good where I'm at 8. I just love seeing the different strategies, the different ways you can go. That's why mock draft exercises are so useful, because when you're in that situation, you don't know how the board will fall to you, and you may want to pivot. You may want to think about a different, path in your draft. So go for it. Try a mock, try it out, see what it looks like, see how your roster plays out. If you don't like how that looks, then don't do that. But it's a great exercise to sort of try different strategies out that maybe you're not familiar with, that you don't always go. And yeah, I mean, this was very useful for me. I'll tell you that. I know our draft will be different. Again, we play in like a super flex, 2 quarterbacks. So quarterbacks will be probably 6 or 7 of the top 10 picks will be quarterbacks in our league. It'll look very different, but it's still a useful exercise nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, there you go. Any other anything else we want to say about the mock draft? We did a couple things. I want to bring this up about. Michael had a comment about Khalil Herbert. How do you feel about Khalil Herbert as far as fantasy goes? Maybe Mitch, you're the Bears guy. What do you think?
There's a lot. Late round at best. I mean, we got Donta Foreman, the great, he's going to be a great short yardage guy. Yeah. Rashawn Johnson, they just drafted, is going to be a contributor in that offense. I think he's got a ton of talent. I think Khalil Herbert, contrary to belief, is not a great passing down guy. He's not a guy that catches a ton of passes. He's shown basically the majority of his success on the ground. So I think that you see kind of more of a traditional Bears offense in that sense. And so Khalil Herbert would probably be a good depth guy when it comes to fantasy, but I wouldn't be banking on him as a RB3, RB4 in your offense. He would be a good depth guy that you could plug in a good matchup, and plug him in that sort of sense.
Yeah, Bears backfield probably one you just want to avoid entirely.
Yeah,
in normal redraft
it's not in a good state right now. No,
and it's just so hard to know who's going to really come out with the most carries.
And you know what? That Khalil Herbert or Rashawn Johnson or Donta Foreman might emerge, and a guy that you want to add off the waivers, but
yeah,
out in draft season, maybe want to avoid. And you might want to put a hold on that and see how that works out.
Yeah.
Fighting with Donta Foreman for snaps is not necessarily where you want to be at this point in the season. Last time we saw Donta Foreman, he looked really good in some stretches. So
Yeah,
it's just,
Panthers
it's
legend.
not
Come
clear
on.
enough. It's not clear enough. It's not going to be clear enough. And even when it is, I don't know if you're going to get enough fantasy value to justify the pick. So I would just stay away.
Yeah. Exactly.
Michael
So-
also asks, I don't know, I'm the only one that does this, but I queue everyone I'm interested in. I queue before the draft starts, so I know who I should go with.
Yeah.
Jordan, as one of the fancy experts, is queuing something that you should do or something that you rely on, or is that something do you stay away from queuing so you can kind of go with the flow of the draft and kind of get a feel for the way the direction is going?
I don't start my draft with a queue full. I will throw guys into my queue when we get into the late rounds just to remind myself that, like, I'm going to reach 20 players down to get this guy if that's the case.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with queuing ahead of time. The only thing I would say, Michael, is make sure that you stay water in your drafts, because one of the things that tends to happen when you queue early is you just get laser focused on the guys that you wanted ahead of time, that you lose sight of guys falling sometimes, or some of your other draft mates just being morons. So stay water, make sure that you are moving as the draft moves, but there's nothing wrong with queuing. Go for it.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I very much queue players in the range that I'm going to be interested in. Absolutely, I do that, Michael. I'll put those players, just a note for myself. But then, as Jordan said, as the draft goes, you got to stay fluid. You got to be able to roll with it. And if you get a good value, if someone falls to you, you can't anticipate. I love going for it. So I think that's absolutely a great strategy. Use the queue there. So
yeah, as Stephen A says, the list is fluid. It's fluid. It's
There you
fluid.
go.
So
There you go.
Have what know what you want to go get, but be willing to be flexible and change what you got queued, and go after the guy that maybe falls a little bit, and that is at your availability when you pick.
Yeah, there you go. That's the 10-round mock draft. That's the fantasy football preview on the Sports Hour podcast. Big thanks to Jordan Fox, our good friend, fellow Sports Hour guy, for joining us for this. He is the fantasy football expert. So fitting that we had you on for this episode. How'd it go? How did it feel being live on the podcast for 2+ hours? You feeling all right? Are you ever going to come back?
Listen, it's always great to see your smiling faces and get to talk fantasy football. Thanks for having me on. It was a blast. Yeah, it was a great time.
Love it. Well, we appreciate you joining us, and we appreciate you at home, wherever you are listening. If you're watching live on YouTube or Twitter, if you joined us tonight on this Thursday evening, we appreciate it. If you're listening on the podcast feed, we appreciate it. Follow us on social. Wherever you are on social media, you'll find us. Instagram is at the Sports Hour Guys. The TikTok is at the Sports Hour Guys. Twitter at Sports Hour Guys. YouTube at the Sports Hour Guys. I mean, come on.
Call it by the right name.
What?
It's not Twitter.
We got to change this now too. Jesus, bro.
It's X, baby. That's
Follow
X.
us on X. I've just edited it. Okay, there you go. Follow us on X at Sports Hour Guys. Great catch. I had no idea what you were talking about. I was like, what?
Well,
YouTube? What are you like?
I know it sucks. I know it sucks. So we got to change stuff, but it happens.
Yes, you're right. You're right. It is on X. And wherever you listen to podcasts, right, Mitch? That's where you can find us.
Absolutely. Wherever you can get your podcast, you can get us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you can listen to your podcast. You will find us there. Just look up the Sports Hour Guys. And once again, Michael, thank you. You are the MVP of the episode.
Shout out you, dog.
Appreciate it.
You have been an MVP of this episode. We got a new sub. He just said, "Def, listen again." Let me read the comment verbatim. Def, tune in again. I subbed. Thank you, Michael, for doing that. We love it. We appreciate you. We look forward to hearing from you next week as we get into more of the college football swing of things. Once again, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. That's where you can listen to this podcast. You can go ahead and get on Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and review. Tell us that we suck, because, Dallen, that is the only way that we can get better.
It is the only way that we can get better and be more like Michael, folks. Subscribe on YouTube.
Be more like Michael. Thank you. Go.
Let's do it. So until next time, we love you, we appreciate you, and we'll catch you next week.
So long, everybody, and a very pleasant good evening to you, wherever you may be. See ya!